Okay, we should be live. So, hello guys, welcome back to the next. I called it the Jaded Talk now. That's what I think my podcast name will be. I just kept it as like a filler name with SWEU, but I think this one is fitting for me. Today, first of all, I'm joined by the great Dylan. Welcome. Thanks for being on here, and we're gonna
Thanks for
talk
having
about.
me.
Yeah, it's a pleasure. We're gonna talk about Before the Storm, so the first book of the Black Fleet Crisis trilogy. Yeah, maybe if you want to just briefly start, saying like when was the last time you read it and what's like your general opinion about the book.
So I read it back in most recently back in like 2015 or 2016, somewhere around
Mm-hmm.
that time. And I remember I read it as part of a chronological reread of Bantam, and
Mm-hmm.
I really enjoyed it
Mm-hmm.
uh, a lot more than a lot of other people. I've been sort of the Black Fleet Crisis defender
Mm-hmm.
a little bit. Um, so I'm a bit fuzzy on all of the details, but
Yeah.
from what I remember, I really liked the Lando plot.
Mm-hmm.
I thought uh, the villain and the antagonist of the series was
Mm-hmm.
very interesting, and I liked them a lot as well.
Mm-hmm.
Um, the weakest of all the storylines, in my opinion, was definitely the Luke one.
Yeah, probably. Yeah. Yeah. So yeah, it's true. Like, it was pretty clear, like early on to me. Okay, you are sort of the one. Like, I think Noah thinks Blackfleet is okay, sort of. Let's say, and most others are like, sort of
Yeah,
wishy. Yeah,
I think it's underrated for the for Bantam era stuff.
that might be the case. Yeah, it that could be the case because yeah, Bantam. I mean, said it a lot of times. There's quite a few stinkers there, and yeah, I think Blackfleet Crisis is just. I guess it's just forgotten. It's not that polarizing in any real way, but yeah, I mean, I finished Before the Storm like I don't know, maybe 2-3 weeks ago, probably, and yeah, I remember. I definitely agree. The Lando Lobot plotline, that's definitely my favorite, which is quite new for me actually, because the only post Return of the Jedi Lando depiction I liked at all was the
Hmm.
Thrawn trilogy. And I mean, he wasn't particularly special in any way, at least not how I remember him. He was just being Lando, essentially. And yeah, afterwards, I mean, especially JAT and Callista, that's, I
Hmm.
mean, when he was present, he was not really impressing me that much. Like, and at some point, he actively started to annoy me. Whereas in this book, he actually has like a really, really good storyline and a really good character as well.
Yeah,
Yeah, and
Bantam era wise, Black Fleet Crisis and I think it's Carillion trilogy are the only ones that really give Lando a chance to like shine on his own, like without the help of all the other characters,
mm-hmm.
the other big movie characters.
Yep. No, that's true. I think, like, I mean, AC Crispin trilogy. I guess that is Bantam era, right? But
Right,
it's
right.
obviously it's pre the movies, and yeah, I mean he was good there, but of course yeah, he was more reliant on being connected to Han in the book,
Mhm.
whereas he's actually sort of alone. I mean, he's not totally alone, obviously, but he's not reliant on Luke, Han, and Leia to carry him along as like the character that's just there because he's part of the cast, but he doesn't really do anything
Right.
special. He actually has something very interesting to do, and I think it helped that instead of like saying, I don't know, Han goes along with him or somebody, it's actually Lobot, who was, I think, for the first time since the movies, probably brought back into the Star Wars universe in general. I mean, I don't know if he was like in a comic or short story, maybe, perhaps in there, but that's the first time I've heard of Lobot since watching
Yeah,
the movie.
I think
So,
you're right. I think at least within the books, with the books
yeah,
and
maybe
the
good.
adult
Yeah.
and young adult, this is like the only real time that he's around for any
Mm-hmm.
meaningful amount of time.
Yeah, I think so. And he even has. I mean, we'll talk more about that, I think, in Shield of Lies when I get to that one. But he actually even has like really interesting interactions beyond just with Lando. He's together with 3PO, and
Mhm.
they actually have a pretty nice talk about how sentient am I really as a droid,
Mhm.
which it was an interesting conversation, but I think that one will be more part of the next book. He is, yeah, he I was surprised by that. I mean, you could have easily made this just into, oh, remember this character from the movie? Yeah,
Mhm.
he's there now. He has nothing to do, but it's something you remember. But no, he actually has something to do, and I quite enjoy that. And obviously, it's nice to see Lando and Lobot have an actual, some form of relationship in this book, because of course, like Empire Strikes Back, you don't really get a lot from them. Lobot's just like his bodyguard, basically, but that's it. No, but I think generally I agree. So you could probably roughly separate this book into 3 storylines, which is the Lando one, which I suppose is the most disconnected one. But I mean,
Yeah.
Luke's also disconnected. Yeah, so which is definitely like, it's pretty well done throughout the book, and going into the next one as well, it's also really great. Yeah, then the next one would be the Leia, Han, Niels Spar storyline. That's like that's placed the second place for me, because I do agree that I like the type of villain that Niels Spar is,
Mhm.
because I think he's I'd have to think about it, but I think he's the first real villain that is specifically a politician. I think like you had, I mean, sure,
Yes.
the emperor sort of is a politician, but the fight was not really political in a sense. It was just a military fight. And I mean, Thrawn, he wasn't a politician. It was just pure war. Whereas Niels Spar is actually, he's more about talking, like him directly. Of course, the Yevethans are a military force as well, but that's his way of trying to undermine the New Republic. And I like that part. I'm just not a fan of Leia's response to his presence, really.
Yeah.
Leia's I think Leia's the second weakest of the big 3 in this book. She's really good in the beginning, and we'll get into that shortly. But yeah, around the time when Niels Spar landed on Coruscant, I was sort of disappointed by her. And yeah, Luke Arcana, that's the bottom of the barrel for me. I'm pretty. I mean, I'm sort of used to this Luke at this point, which is not a good thing, really, but it is what it is. Arcana is, I guess, more of a nothing character in this book. She's gonna be really annoying in Shield of Lies to me. I guess
Mhm.
here she's just there, sort of. But yeah, I think overall this is still, with all the books we had in Bantam so far, it's still one of the ones I see in a in a better light, because yeah, coming out of JAT
Yeah.
Callista, this is still it's still a breath of fresh air. But yeah, I think it has serious issues, I would say.
Yeah.
But yeah.
For Bantam, it's like above average in like Bantam quality, but like for overall, I'd probably still put it like
So could you just repeat? Like, my internet was gone for a second there. It
oh,
was my bad.
so like I was saying like amongst the Bantam books, right? It's probably like
Hmm.
an above average one quality wise. But if you expand it to like all Star Wars books, it probably isn't really average. It's like below average. But that's just
Hmm.
because Bantam is has a lot of terrible stuff in it.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, especially if you only look at Bantam's, I guess you could call it like the main storyline, whereas
Mhm.
X-Wing really isn't a part of that. Especially if you look at it like that, yeah, I would say Black Fleet Crisis is in the above average category, definitely. But yeah, it's just it just seems like an unpolarizing book most of the times. People
Yeah.
don't really talk about it a lot. I mean, I've never heard about it a
Yeah,
whole
this is
lot.
like so this is the start of like I guess almost the forgotten like Bantam books like
Hmm.
because everyone talks about either good or bad everything up until you get to Black Fleet Crisis, and then from Black
Yep.
Fleet Crisis to like right uh through the Carillion trilogy and New Rebellion, like no one really talks about those books.
True. It's like, yeah, the New Rebellion and Corellian trilogy, I also really don't hear anything about, usually, at least, unless you ask specifically, of course. But
yeah,
that's true. I mean, they are just sort of there. I mean, I guess it's because they don't really, at least talking about Black Fleet Crest, they don't really talk about anything really essential to the. I don't know. It just stands on its own, and it's not really. Doesn't really feel as though it's a part of what came before, and probably not what's going to come afterwards. Just its own thing.
Now that I'm thinking about it, all three of them have a main antagonist that isn't directly connected to the Empire.
That is. Oh yeah, we don't. Yeah, did we ever get that? Really, I don't. I mean, not at least not in a trilogy, I guess. You have
No.
JAT is Dala, obviously. Thrawn is and Thrawn. Yeah, Callista arguably still Dala somewhat. Oh yeah, probably. Assad's Revenge is just like, oh yeah, it's that one Stackpole novel that's like sort of true.
Yeah.
I don't think people talk about that one a lot. And I guess was Scourge still the Bantam publishing era, or is Scourge afterwards? I don't remember. I always forget.
Scourge was after him, almost certain. I think Scourge was Del Rey.
I'm sorry, I think you broke away there for a second. Could you repeat? Or I'm not sure if it was me.
I think Scourge was Del Rey.
Yeah, it might have.
Oh yeah, it came out in 2012. That was definitely Del Rey.
Yeah, 2012. Okay, yeah, that's Del Rey. Yeah, I don't know. There's some novels I can't connect to anything. Yeah, okay, no, that's Del Rey. Yeah, 2012 exactly. Yeah, okay, that was my bad. But I mean, Scourge would be also a book that's just sort of forgotten about and no one really talks about it. But yeah, I think that's.
At Twin Suns, we always make sure to keep one copy of Scourge at every single donation event we do, just in case there's someone that's actually read Star Wars books before, because there's no way in hell they've read Scourge.
Yeah, I think so. And I mean, yeah, I mean, that's right. How many copies of Scourge have you given out?
Exactly one. The only time I've ever handed out Scourge was at the very last one, because we had two events where someone actually had read Star Wars books, and the first time we didn't have anything. So ever since then, we always brought Scourge with us. And the second time it happened, we're like, "Well, have you read this one?" They're like, "No, what is that?"
Yeah, I mean, it's true. It's not really. I mean, the cover is also just like there. I mean, it's a Jedi on there. You see a lightsaber, so I guess some people could be like, "Oh, what's that?" But yeah, I don't think most people. I think a lot of people have heard about that one. Yeah, you usually, I guess you usually take the one with a prolific name or or reputation. I guess Thrawn is always with there. I guess Jedi Academy, because the name, of course, sounds interesting, and it is like Luke building up his academy. That's of course something that people want to know about if they want to read, I suppose. Yeah, but yeah, no Black Fleet, and I guess that's why you don't get a lot of like qualified critique about Black Fleet Crisis. I guess because I don't think a lot of people bother rereading this usually and talking about it. So yeah, it's worse than odd. Oh, we'll get to that at some point. Perhaps.
Yeah.
I mean, Order 66 is not the most impressive cover, especially for the very interesting topic, at least what the name implies. Yeah.
Yeah.
Black
I would also
feet.
say
I didn't say black feet, Fabe. That's just you.
So on Order 66 specifically, I think when you're talking about bad covers, there's like a cover that is bad on its own, and for Order 66, a cover that is bad with the rest of the series, because it has the rule of two thing, where it's a completely different art style that is from what everything else around it, and that just makes it look worse in my opinion. Anyway, Black Fleet Crisis.
I'm not hearing you. Maybe someone in chat, can you write? Is it me that's breaking off, and perhaps I'm just not hearing Dylan, or is it Dylan? Maybe Fabi, if you're in there. sweating. You can at least say that. Yeah, I'm sorry. Could you repeat again? I guess I'm not sure whose fault it was here.
So with Order 66, it's different with bad covers. There's covers that are bad on their own, and there's covers that are bad in conjunction with the other books in the series. And Order
Oh yeah.
66 is the latter. It's like
Mhm.
a Rule of Two, where the art
Yeah.
style is so different and divergent from the rest of the series, and it's worse that it just makes
Mhm.
it makes what is already a bad cover look so much worse.
Yeah. Especially, yeah. I mean, if you look at the Republic Commando, like whatever you may think about the books, I mean, the covers look pretty cool,
Hmm.
actually. But yeah, Order 66, that's true, actually. It really stands out, and like this looks a lot different for some reason, especially given that I guess Imperial Commando is the same one as before again.
Hmm.
So yeah, no, it's not the most impressive cover, but yeah, we have a lot of really weird covers, I guess. And I mean, I suppose we can just also talk, since we are on covers anyway, about the cover of Before the Storm. I think this one is a pretty good cover, actually. I
Hmm.
mean, um, Luke looks weird on a lot of covers, but here he looks pretty nice, I would say. Same with Han, really. I mean, they still look pretty young.
Hmm.
Perhaps I don't know. Perhaps Han should look a bit older than movie Harrison Ford at this point, but I mean, that's not a big deal, really. Same with Leia; she actually looks really nice. You have Lobot in the back, which should be which is a surprise for anyone who's like, oh, the character is actually back. That's surprising.
Yeah, and it's
And yeah,
not false advertising like the Cessus
hmm
Deception, which has Count Dooku on the cover, even though he's not even in the book.
yeah. And I think Ventress isn't on the cover, right? But
Yeah,
she actually
she's
is in the book and has a
yeah,
fight.
yes,
Which is bizarre. But I think she is on Jedi Trial, but on the cover. I think she's on the cover of Jedi Trial, whereas in
yes,
that book she's only mentioned.
yep,
Yeah, it's sometimes they just got a bit insane here. Bantam cover. I mean, no, I think we've had really, really weird Bantam covers. I think this one is one of the more positive ones. It looks like the characters look actually really. I mean, I
hmm
don't know. I suppose they are drawn here. Um, the ships there. I'm not sure if this is supposed to represent the Fifth Fleet or just in general New Republic ships like X-wings,
yeah,
but and E-wings, I suppose as well. But yeah, I mean, what? How are you gonna represent Before the Storm as a cover? I guess like the name, just the words Before the Storm.
yeah,
Um, I think that would be difficult. I mean, sure, it's a stereotypical Bantam cover in a way, you could say it, if you describe it that in that way. But still, I think we can acknowledge that the art style is actually pretty good. I do think I like the coloring here. Yeah, Before the Storm, I guess the title fits because it's before the war against the Yevethans. It's just the start of it, the start really of the reason for the conflict.
yeah,
Yeah. Um we've had worse titles and also worse covers, I would say.
yep,
Yeah, you could have put Neil Spa on that one, or if not on this one, at least on the. I'm not sure if he's on any of the later ones. I think he's not on Shield of Lies and probably not on Tyrant's Test as well, but I don't remember now. Yeah, that's fair. You could have had Neil Spa on that, or at least on the back, something. Yeah, but yeah, okay. Let's just start with the book. So the book has an actual prologue, which is in the past. So the prologue is like 8 months after Endor, apparently after the Battle of Endor,
hmm
where we just get a bit of a bit of world building about the situation of the Yevethans. I suppose we have the Empire, which is now, of course, really understaffed. They have a base on Enzoth, I guess you would pronounce the planet, which is the main planet, as I've understood, of the Yevethans. And yeah, I just imagined, okay, there is a local fleet there. I guess this is gonna be the Black Fleet, which in the end also was the case. Yeah, um, they were there. They had like a base there, and of course they used the local population as slaves to, repair their ships and the star destroyers and whatnot. And we have one of the slaves we get introduced to, who's called Neil Spar. He, of course, yeah, in trying to get independence from the empire, they have started to like create an underground movement, basically to try and somehow subvert the empire. They've since they've been forced to repair all of the weaponry and the ships, they have started to learn more about them, like how they function, maybe what's like secret entrances to specific rooms they need access to. And of course, because they are enslaved, their mission is to get revenge on the empire for their enslavement. Um, exactly. So they manipulated the entrances on one of the ships. It was called the Intimidator, basically to safely enter. That's the first thing I guess I could mention. I think it makes sense, of course, for the people who repair the ships to know the secret entrances, but I just wonder sometimes, like when they escape from certain places, I always ask myself, are there no like security cameras anywhere? It's like, hey, these people are roaming around places they shouldn't be at. That's always something I generally ask, because I guess you put so much focus on like spaceships and lightsabers and all of these other really spectacular technological advancements that you just sort of forget, like, oh, we could use a telephone, let's say, on the academy on Yavin, or we could use some cameras to to observe people trying to get access to places they shouldn't be in. That would be the case in, let's say, Jedi Surge, and also here now. But I mean, it's a small thing. It's relatively a nothing thing, I guess. Yeah, we have. Oh, we get also we get introduced just shortly to an Imperial commander who's called Parade. He's like the local Imperial leader, and yeah, because Neil Spar, when the Imperials actually start to flee because they can't hold Yevessa anymore, and there's no real reason to. Um, Neil Spar actually orders to kill the retreating Imperials like without mercy, even though they were gonna run away, but he orders to destroy them anyway. And the commander is pretty like the Imperial commander is pretty pissed about that. Um, which I guess it was sort of ironic for me, because I mean, you're an Imperial. I don't think like not committing war crimes is something Imperials really do that. I mean, I guess they usually would commit war crimes themselves. So, um, but no, but I thought it was good that he seemed to actually really care about not getting his defenseless men killed, because a trap I think a lot of authors go into is when they depict Imperials, they depict them as like comically evil, which I don't think they need to be. You can make Imperials who have like an actual philosophy and like a reason why they think the Empire is a good force in the galaxy, and even if it's just little little cases of them showing that they care more about, let's say, the Empire or their men in general, I always appreciate that. So that's
Yeah.
something yeah, I really liked. And yeah, I mean, I liked it in other work, like I think Rogris was his name in Starfighters of Aduma, where he actually explains to Wedge why he's part of the Empire. And yeah, you don't get that a whole lot. I guess people have just gotten used to the space Nazi haha thing, that they don't try to depict the Empire as anything more than that, and it's always good when someone actually does.
Yeah.
Um, yeah, that's that. And yeah, at the end, it seemed as though the surviving Imperials were like enslaved themselves now. Like the ones that were taken prisoner, I guess they were enslaved by the Yevethans, who just of course, had a lot of technology that remained in the system, and that's the ending of the prologue already. So yeah, we just get left with that, and I think afterwards I think that's 12 years after Endor is where Black Fleet Crisis is at. I'm not quite sure, because I think Luke was 34. I think we had an actual number that he's 34 now. Yeah, so it might be like around that time frame. Exactly. Yeah. I mean, comically evil villains like that can work in a specific way, but you don't need to like make all Imperials like that. A lot of Imperials would just be normal people working normal jobs, or actually people who believe in the thing without
Yeah,
just being villains.
especially
Yeah.
as you go lower into the totem pole. Like I can, the high-ranking
Hmm.
Imperial moths and
Yep.
stuff, I can totally buy being cartoonishly evil, but like the
Hmm.
regular Joes and like low-ranking officers and stuff are
Yeah. I mean, sure. Like arguably even the ones who, let's say, activated the laser on the Death Star. I don't guess they were really high-ranking people. They were just people pushing buttons, doing their job, more or
yeah,
less. Um,
for the
yeah,
mining laser.
the mining laser, exactly. Of course, that's the only possible use for the Death Star. Yeah, what was it? The World Destroyers. What were they for? I think for reforestation, probably. Who knows? Yeah, that's been a thing that's been said, definitely. Yeah, so that was the prologue. Then we get the actual chapter 1. Oh yeah, that's just my thing, I guess. Something I always have to point out is that a lot of these Bantam books have really, really long chapters, and
Mhm.
even if I like the stories, like I like Aduma a lot, but even Aduma has very long chapters, and I don't like that. I don't know. Maybe it's just a psychological thing. I guess it is, because of course it wouldn't change anything if the book had 30 chapters instead of 15, but it just feels easier to read for me, at least. Oh no, he's gonna. Oh yeah, he's gonna do his tier list thing, I guess. Yeah, greet him from me. Can't show up today, unfortunately. Exactly. So, oh yeah, we get a battle in the beginning, and that's where I immediately got what people also usually said about Black Fleet. It's like the second thing that's really, really known, really known about it, is that it's really artistic about the military stuff in general, like describing ships and battles and formations in a lot of detail, a lot more than they would usually do. And I guess we can just shortly talk about that point. I mean, I'm almost finished with Shield of Lies now.
Mhm.
Um, I don't get the feeling that it's a lot more. I mean, it's more descriptive, I would say, but I don't get the feeling as though it's like really a whole lot more than other books are. I mean, I don't know. Perhaps it's just me. I was like, yeah. I mean, they give a bit more context and a bit more information about certain stuff, but
Yeah, I never like I hear that same thing said about Stover a lot, that he gets really technical and like
Mhm.
autistic about like the battles, and every time I don't see it reading it, but when I hear that criticism, I can't help but think like, why is that a bad thing? Like this is Star Wars
Yeah,
after all.
yeah. Usually just hear it said like that, like it's autistic about military, and I always guess like, okay, this is just a case of, do you like that or don't you like that?
Yeah.
Um, I like the autistic. Yeah, I mean, I like that they explain more about the military, but even then, I didn't get the feeling that the military stuff was like really, like, it is more detailed, but I didn't have the feeling as though it was so much more that it was really, like, really noticeable. You just get,
Yeah,
okay, yep, they spend more
it's
time
not
on it.
it's
But
not nearly at the level of a Jedi trial, for
yeah,
example.
which I mean, I even like Jedi Trial, and I know that most people don't, but yeah, I didn't have a problem with the military stuff. And yeah, I would say Jedi Trial feels more militaristic than this one, definitely. And I guess And I guess it's because Jedatron mostly is from soldiers' perspectives, not actually from Anakin's. Whereas this, of course, has side plots that aren't really about military stuff at all. The third one has the... Oh, okay, I guess I'm not at the third one yet, so I'll see that. Yeah, I mean, the way that the story evolves, I guess it makes sense that when the war actually happens, that's when the most military stuff is gonna be described. But yeah, military makes brain feel nice. Yeah, I mean, I agree. It's just the thing about are you good at writing it, and are you not boring with it? And I don't feel like that's boring. At least not how it's written here.
No.
Exactly. Yeah, we just get a lot of we get descriptions about, mostly about ships, like what makes them unique. We even have little details like, some of them, like when you're inside of them, they have like this chemical smell to them when they were just finished in construction, and that's like at some point the smell goes away. I mean, it's just little details that we get that we usually wouldn't get in a novel like this. But yeah, I mean, I like it because it's it's not the type of air battles that we are used to, of course, on planet Earth. So it's good if you get a bit more in detail about what's, how does the stuff look like, how does it work, what impact do weapons have, and all that. Exactly. We have a little like a simulated fight. Like in the first chapter, you get the feeling that an actual fight is happening, but it's more of a simulated fight over the alpha moon of a planet called Bessemir, or like of a moon called Bessemir system. I just thought in general, yeah, it was like a pretty easy to follow battle, which I like. There has been space battles where I'm struggling. I guess Barbara Handley would be someone like that, where I really struggle to even understand what's going on and like having a mental picture. Whereas this one, yeah, I mean, perhaps I would say Stackpole and Alston write it a bit better, but I liked this one here. I think it was nice to follow. Yeah, exactly. E-wings. Even that Luke has an E-wing now instead of an X-wing. That's pretty cool. I like that because, yeah, they are clearly better, and the books do make a point about that. So it makes sense for them to get a bit more attention as the timeline goes on. Yeah, and we just get a little like a mock battle. Basically, it's the testing battle of the newly finished Fifth Fleet, which will be a central part of the story here. We have just like a bit of military tactics. I guess that's what you can include in the descriptive part here. Is that we have enemies, and they have a cannon, and the cannon has a shield synchronized to it, which basically means like whenever the cannon shoots, the shield dissipates, and when it's done shooting, it like it launches again, so it's turned on again. And yeah, I mean, that sounds like a reasonable thing to have as a weapon. It sounds pretty cool, actually.
That's actually I think I know where he got that from, because that's a very reminiscent of interrupter gears in early fighter aircraft, because like in because back when people were still using prop planes in the First World War,
Yep.
the only parts of the aircraft that were like had enough structure to put a gun on was the fuselage. So if you put it right there, you would be
Yep.
shooting through the propeller, which means you could shoot the
Oh, yeah.
propeller off. And
Yeah.
at the first, they would like either like put metal strips on the propeller to make it so it wouldn't shoot, and then a Dutch engineer, Anton Fokker, devised a like interrupter gear, which was like it was a pin and a roller on a shaft that the propeller stood, and the shaft had a bunch of bumps where the actual blades of the propeller were, so that when it hit one of the bumps, it would manually turn on the safety on the gun, so the gun would not fire when the propeller was right in front of it, but as soon as
Yeah.
the propeller got out of the way, it would fire again.
Yeah, that's actually pretty. Oh yeah, now that you mentioned, I've heard about that, like from the First World War. Exactly. Yeah, so that makes a lot of sense actually, and it's an interesting way to, you know, change this from the real world and put it in Star Wars like that, because, I mean, that's a really a really sensible thing to have as a weapon. Of course, the artillery is sort of essential to defending your planet, and iron cannons, I guess, stationary iron cannons, and to have shields that work in that way, like propellers used to work with aircraft in World War One. It's actually a really nice way to incorporate that, and exactly, I like that. And yeah, we just get a bit of that. Exactly, yeah, and that's really all there is to say for this chapter. I guess the only thing that I mentioned about the cannons is I don't know how common it is for planets to have those sort of cannons. I mean, I guess Coruscant would have something similar without knowing it actually, but yeah, usually if you attack a planet, they will, I guess, usually try to destroy the cannons that are on the ground, and I'm not sure how like common it is that they have those sort of weapons, because they probably should be a lot more common than they are. But yeah, that's all there really is to say about this chapter. So chapter 2. Oh yeah, okay. Chapter 2 starts with Luke now, I think. Yeah, exactly. Um,
Chapter 2 has the thing that turns a lot of people immediately off about this series.
yes, and understandably so. I mean, it's sad to think about, but uh, Luke got the short end of the stick a lot of times in Bantam. Like, I mean, of course, he was always there, but it wasn't necessarily always good that he was there because he usually sort of sucked. And unfortunately for this book, this is the case here as well. So we start the chapter on Yavin. In the beginning, we get a bit of interesting backstory about the Masasi. So, the Jedi being on Yavin 4, at some point they found like a set of philosophical books from the Masasi in which they talk about Yavin, which apparently, of course, it's the name of the system and the moon, but it's also a god that the Masasi believed in, and they felt inferior to this god, which was like posed as one of the reasons why they really went crazy and tried um, to build all these temples and to try and get closer to the dark side, like in a way to get closer to the god himself. Um, I thought it was an interesting idea. I'm just not sure how good this meshes, or how well this meshes with Tales of the Jedi, because I don't remember if the god Yavin was mentioned in Tales of the Jedi, and of course we know the Masasi temples were created because Exar Kun ordered them to do so, more or less. So
Yeah,
I don't know how
and
well that fits in. Yeah.
see, I thought that the Masasi people like worshipped the Sith themselves, the Sith exiles that came to them, like because they viewed them as gods.
Mm,
So
yeah. I mean, that might be it exactly. Yeah, I was just like, it sounds like a cool thing. It makes sense internally, but I was like, I mean, we know that Exar Kun was a part of it. How much does it make sense? But exactly, yeah, maybe it was just it's still an interesting thing, I guess. It's just maybe a bit wonky there, but yep. Oh, okay. So, Luke, yeah. Luke will leave the Jedi Academy once again. So he left in Darksaber, he left in, well, I guess Crystal Star, and now he leaves again, but this time actually for good. He gives the keys to the academy to Streen. Okay, so what do I think about that? I guess Streen, in a way, is already a veteran when it comes to the Praxium. I I don't think it makes no sense for him to get the tempo, but I had this feeling, and I don't get why the authors sort of forgot about him. Why doesn't Camp Solusa get the temple? Like, why doesn't he become the leader of the temple? It's still, he still is the most experienced Jedi out of everyone there, so I don't quite understand why they don't give the keys to him. And we already had this problem in JAT, which is even more ironic because Kevin worked together with Veach, in which Kamsulusa is like mentioned once and then does nothing for the entire trilogy. And it's the same thing here. He's just, I guess he's there, but he's not taking over, which is sad.
Cam doesn't. When they face Exar Kun, Cam isn't even the one that has one of their 2 lightsabers, right? It's
I don't think. Is it Kirana? Is it Kirana T? I'm not
yeah,
even sure
Karanati and Kip,
anymore.
I think, have the 2 have them.
Yeah, I don't think
Or
Kamsulusa
not
has
Kip.
one.
Kip was off.
Kip was off. Yeah, he wasn't on
committing
Yavin.
genocide.
Exact, and then be let off the hook. Yeah, that was. He was somewhere else. I guess he had an excuse this time. It's a rare thing for Kip, but he is there. No, I think it might have been like Karana T perhaps and Dorsk 81. I'm not sure anymore, but I don't think Kamsolusa had them. Yeah. And exactly. And it was said that we had to wait for iJedi for Kamsolusa to actually get a logical job that makes sense for him. Like, okay, he's the instructor for sword fighting. That makes sense. He's the best. I would assume he's the most experienced sword fighter, at least, if not the best. Yeah, and I guess this just goes on. Either he's off the planet and we just don't know it, or Luke does believe that Streen is better for the job. I don't know. Whatever. It's not really. I don't think it's that important anyway. But it's a sad thing. Okay, yeah. So Luke gives his reasoning why he's even leaving. It's that he feels like as though he's under too much pressure. He has other stuff to take care of, which can't be done while he's only on Yavin 4. Yeah. I did, like, in my notes, I said I thought it was, like, that part was maybe good, because sure, Luke is under pressure, but looking back to it, I'm really not okay with it. Because, yeah, it's... I slowly started to get this picture as though Luke was one step away really from becoming full Jake Skywalker. It's like he has basically all the people always come to him. They always need help. He doesn't want to do it anymore. It's too much stress. And that's why he's gonna leave and go away. Yeah. I guess this is the part where a lot of people have switched off their brains and start not liking the Black Fleet crisis, and it's that sad that it's the second chapter only, but yeah.
There's one interesting part about this chapter that I don't know why I've retained this information all these years because it's such like a little thing. But I remember at one point when like Streen interrupts him from his meditations, he gets up from like he was like laying down or like sitting down or whatnot, and he gets up and he like tells himself, "Oh yeah, I was able to stand up without using my hands or the force. I still got it." Like you're only like in your 30s. Why are you?
Exactly. As though he's like a jaded veteran who's like in his 60s or something. Like he's in his 30s. Exactly. He's not old. I mean, especially considering they age a lot, a lot slower than the actual humans on planet Earth. So, I don't quite get what he means by that. Yeah, and exactly, he speaks as though he's a lot older than he is. Yeah, which is weird. I don't know what they were going for with this, but yeah.
I also don't know why. If he's going to be leaving the academy so often to do these
Yeah.
missions, why he doesn't take prospective Jedi with him to be like, you've learned how to be a Jedi in theory. Here's how to be a Jedi in practice.
That's a
Just
good point, actually. Yeah.
just to give him actual more teaching to do, and then give all these other random Jedi that we get like maybe 3 or 4 pages of screen time in the Jedi Academy trilogy, some more time to breathe.
Yeah, because we can get more about what is Luke's actual relationship to those characters. What are the characters for themselves? Like, we have a lot of blank slate characters there who got a little bit, but not really a whole lot. I mean, We have Silgal. I guess she's still around somewhere. I guess she's on Mon Calamari, I think, but I don't know. Kuranati, perhaps. There are people who are just there, and you could take them with you. But yeah, it seems as though that wasn't wished. So Luke leaves completely on his own. He has an E-wing. I guess that's cool, but it sounded as though he's actually living in the thing. Not sure if I like that, but it's good that he has an E-wing because the X-wing is outdated at this point, and makes sense for him to have something new. And we get a little shift of perspective. Now we are with Han and Leia and the children. I was a bit disappointed with the children. So, Jason has no friends really because he's like very closed off. That's his thing. Perhaps it would make sense for him to be a bit closed off after, I guess canonically after Crystal Star. But yeah, especially since Jason seemed like a really a normal kid when it comes to being social. It was a bit weird to me that Jason has like no friends at all. He's not playing, which is worse. I mean, having friends, okay, that's one thing. I could understand that, but he's not playing with Anakin and Jaina, especially Jaina anymore, which I don't understand. Like, was before the storm, after the Crystal Star?
Yeah, Before the Storm was written 2 years after Crystal Star.
After Crystal Star. Okay, so we don't have a publishing excuse, like a writing excuse anymore. It's actually Crystal Star established that the three of them have a really close bond. And I would say it would make more sense of them considering what traumatic experiences they have shared together, that they grow even a bit more closer. I didn't like that they seem to be sort of estranged now.
Yeah, because especially with twins, it's like the difficult thing with raising twins a lot of times is the fact that they can't make friends very easily because they default to their twin as their best friend. You have to like break that and make them go off on their own, and it's like complete opposite. And it would make sense if the thing of, oh, they can't make friends is because they're the kids of like two of the most important people in this entire galaxy, right? If the celebrity status of their parents was keeping them from like getting along with the other kids, that would be one thing. But it's internally for some reason.
Exactly. Yeah. And you could also say like, oh, they have a hard time making friends because they would just rather spend time together.
Yes.
That I could also understand, especially since Crystal Star really made a point at describing how that especially Jason and Jaina have like an actual twin bond in a way that goes that has even a force element to it that goes deeper than the usual relationship you have with someone you care about. So just there's no influence on what's happening to them in any way. Like,
or
they are not.
You can even have it so that they've been kidnapped so many times that they just don't trust strangers anymore.
Yeah, I would understand that as well, because at this point, so many tried it. I mean, Anakin especially. Anakin was successfully abducted like 2 times already, so I understand it. But yeah, I mean, you have to give a bit more here. It's a bit sad. I don't know. Exactly. We are of course with Han and Leia. Han actually has a really nice moment, and I think Han is probably the best of the big three so far in the book because he seems most consistent with who he is supposed to be. And in this case, we have Han who actually wants to give up his formal position in the New Republic to properly care for his children, which is really good because what we do is we usually make fun of the fact that that the probably the best spy in the New Republic, being Winter, is always sort of sidelined as being the babysitter for the solo children while Han and Leia are still out there. And it usually feels like a cop-out to still have them do the stuff that we sort of expect them to do while the children not still being in the picture. And Han being like, okay, you know what, I might actually want to spend more time with them, was really nice. I actually really liked that. He called Akbar, basically was like, yeah, I'm resigning from my post. What Akbar instead did, because of course, like, Han has a lot of special privileges that he only gets because he is officially part of the New Republic, and a high-ranking part at that, which means that Akbar basically relegates into being the position of, what is it, Leia's officer for home defense. That's like the unofficial position that Han gets now, to essentially don't work anymore but still have all the privileges of being part of
be
the,
a stay-at-home, be paid to be a stay-at-home dad.
which sounds actually pretty cool. Exactly. He gets actually paid. He still has all his privileges, and he gets to stay at home with his kids. So yeah, pretty nice thing actually. And it's, it was a fun way to keep him, like, to make sense of it, that he can do stuff if he wishes to do so, but still that he stays behind with the kids. We have, in general, just some good parenting here. Leia, we get a bit of explanation about Leia. So she usually supports Han in their parenting activities, I guess. The only time when she will disagree with him is like when they are alone and not in front of the children. Just, hey, that's good. They can be good parents. I like that. They even take time, like, off in the evening to go in the whirlpool together and just have fun, and to read bedtime stories to their children. Not there's not a lot of stuff happening here, but I just like that we get the feeling that there actually is a family there. Because as I said, they are usually just off screen, sort of, so that we can do business as usual with Han and Leia, but still have them have a family in the background, and that we have a bit more focus here is really nice. Yeah, Jason. Okay, another thing I'm not sure if I like about Jason is that he apparently is starting to get arrogant about his powers. Han is trying to get him, like, to do sports and to move around a bit, basically. And Jason thinks that he doesn't need to actually train in any sports because he can just be like Uncle Luke and take what he needs with his mind. I find it concerning that a kid that is, like, how old is he at this point? Like, he's not that old, that he already
Like
has this. Yeah,
6 or 7, I think.
it's weird.
Is this the one? I can't remember if this one or if
I'm
this
not.
Carillion trilogy. Is this the one where, like, Han comments on how he's getting, like, fatter, Jason?
I'm sorry. You just, at some points, you sometimes, I don't hear you
All right,
sometimes. I'm not sure if it's something with me here.
sorry.
But
I can't remember if this is Black Fleet Crisis or Carillion trilogy, but at some point Han notices that, like, Jason is getting more lethargic and, like, is getting, like, fatter.
oh, okay.
I can't
That's
remember if that's this one or if it's Carillion trilogy.
I'm trying to think. I think he only points out that Jason doesn't want to do any sports. I can't remember if he actually said that he's gaining weight. That would sort of be funny, I suppose. But yeah, I can't remember. I don't think it's in this one, but it may have been, and I've just overread it. But yeah, like, especially, like, for a small child who usually has a lot of energy, it's a bit weird for Jason to already bring this up. And I was like, if this is maybe a setup for Luke and Jason having a bit of bonding, and him being like, listen, you can't just do nothing. Like, all of this, that comes from somewhere, and that somewhere means training, and a lot of training. But yeah, in isolation, this scene was still pretty. I was not impressed by this Jason. Oh, exactly. And I think Leia was like wondering where Luke is because I guess they haven't heard from him in quite some while, which of course again is not the best thing. And Han seemed to be like very disinterested in where Luke is and why he is at the place that he's at. And I don't know. I find I think that part is a bit off-putting for Han to seemingly care so little about Luke and his his well-being and even just knowing where he is. It's yeah, not a fan of that. Okay, that's been chapter 2. So 3 we have Leia. Okay, so Leia at this point is like she's so busy as chief of state that she's sending other people to greet her guests now. Especially like somebody that apparently is called president. Because she, for one reason is, okay, this is not just a ceremonial title. This person can actually greet people in my name. And and also to just make them accept that they can't get to see her all of the time, which in and of itself is good because it makes
why is it taking this long?
Yeah, it's like you've been chief of state for quite a while now. This seems like after 2 weeks you notice everyone always wants to see you. So at this point you should have realized that probably we should have somebody who greets them in my name because I can't, like, if it's the entire galaxy, you physically can't greet everyone who wants to greet you. So
Yeah, I think there's something like 10,000 member worlds in the Republic.
yeah, like, that's a lot of people with a lot of problems. You can't always speak to them. And but like I said in the last few streams now, making Leia chief of state this early, I just think was a mistake.
Yeah.
Because they are like, authors have essentially handcuffed themselves to Leia just being in this position, not really having a lot to do, because that's something I was increasingly annoyed with while going through Bantam, is that Leia always has this arc, the one thing being her relationship with Vader, and the other thing being her really needing to train in the Force and to become a Jedi. Which is always like, at the beginning, she's like, oh yeah, I had stuff X I was more interested in, or like I didn't have the time or something. Then towards the end of the book, she's always like, oh, I should really learn more about the Force now, to just in the next book have it repeated the same way. Yeah.
Well, at least they have a lightsaber fight in this one.
I guess so, yeah. And Planet of Twilight, we had to have a lightsaber fight as well, I guess. But yeah, I mean, they do something, I guess. But yeah, they should have made her something a bit less, just a bit less than this, because this is very, very constricting storytelling wise, and it's a perfect thing for her to be once she's supposed to move into the background a bit more, because that's when you just can have her around at times, but be busy with other stuff. But yeah. Okay, so Leia. Oh yeah. So Paramus. Okay, we have a character called Paramus. He's a senator. Tig Paramus, I guess, was his name, and he sent a letter. Apparently, I think it was just a general complaint, and she said it was like rather timid for him. And Leia, but it seemed to be a passive aggressive letter, just about what he thinks is not going correct with. I think it was already specifically about the Fifth Fleet, and Leia gets sort of angry about that letter. And I'm just gonna quote at least what I translated directly from German, is that Leia is jealous of people who don't leave choke marks on the necks of their victims. I guess meaning that she wants to kill Paramus because he's annoying her so much. I don't know if Leia needs to be like this, little old pacifist Leia.
Yeah.
Because this is also a weird connection that we have in the books, is that they speak about hatred and the desire to kill and anger really quickly, even though like it seemed obvious that even from the movies, like these are emotions that lead to the dark side, which I would assume then would be a problem for Leia, because she's feeling all of these negative emotions, which she's not supposed to feel if she doesn't want to be part of the dark side. But then there's never really anything happening with it, which is sad, I guess. I mean, I'd rather just not have it in there, but if it is in there, it should have an impact, I guess. Yeah, but she's just really, really angry. Um, yeah. So the Fifth Fleet, basically the Fifth Fleet, they are trying to market this newly constructed fleet in a way that makes it more, I guess, more agreeable to use, that it makes them better to use, because it seems as though some senators are worried that building such a large invasion fleet means that, they are sending signals of, I don't know, that they wish to have a conquest or some way, or to like suppress member nations instead of keeping peace. And so they want to instead like use it against pirates, or like to specifically save children or whatnot, just so that the fleet has better PR. Um, I don't know. I guess having people have more political calculation is interesting, but yeah, I don't know. I mean, the rebels always had weapons. Like,
Yeah, and I don't think it even makes sense because at this point in the timeline, the Empire is still around, holed up in the deep core, which is very close
mm,
to Coruscant.
yes.
So having an invasion fleet that can go into the deep core and root them all out so
Mm,
that the capital is secure just makes sense to me.
yeah, which seems as though like we never have them really talk about like attacking Biss again, or just going into the deep core in general. But yeah, you would assume that this is the general long-term interest of the New Republic, is to get the Empire out of everywhere else, and then
Mhm.
like towards the end of their existence to make a final strike into the deep core, which they don't really mention. And this could have been an argument like, well, at some point we're gonna have to attack the Empire again. Like, they are not gone. Dala, I guess, before, because this is before Planet of Twilight, I guess Dala is still around. Pelion is still around. It's not over, but people don't seem to mention that. And like, yeah, this distinction of, yeah, we're not peacekeepers then anymore. It's like we're an invasion force or something. I mean, that's just a reality. You need weapons to find someone, especially all these factions that
Mhm.
are a lot stronger than you. I mean, the Hapens in theory are still around. I mean, they don't get mentioned at all since courtship, but they are around and they could in theory go rogue. You need defense against them. There's the Empire, there's other people. So yeah, that was a weird. I guess I like that people care about that, but it should have been a lot easier for Leia to dispel the notion that they are an invasion, and they are invading something, or that they are insinuating that they will do that. I don't know. Yeah, it was a bit weak for me. Um. Oh, exactly. Yeah, we have Akbar mentioning. Now that I mentioned it, actually, we have Akbar mentioning that Dala is still a big threat, which I
Mhm.
guess is acceptable because, yeah, Planet of Twilight, which determined that Dala has no desire to be a threat to the New Republic anymore, came out after Before the Storm. So it's not the fault of this book to not mention that Dala isn't a thing. But
Yeah,
still, even then, I would have liked if Pelion got a mention, because he didn't.
unless for
Yeah.
some reason the New Republic intelligence is so incompetent that they don't know that Dala has handed the reins to Pelion.
That's that might be. Yeah. New Republic intelligence, that's always something. That's actually a big plus of this series so far. I really like Drayson, who is one of the
Mhm.
intelligence officers, because yeah, like spies and espionage in general, so far in the Bantam era, it seems to me like espionage is just a plot device. It's a very easy way, like writing wise, to make people who shouldn't have certain information learn about them. And it's usually the villains. So the villains learn about something because of spies. And I always started wondering, like, wait, okay, so all these, even these little factions, like Fergan from Carida, even he had spies in the New Republic, and like the Moths or whatever from Crimson Empire, they had spies in the New Republic, but it didn't seem as though the New Republic had spies anywhere themselves. So it could actually be like, oh yeah, they are just so stupid that they don't realize that Dala isn't a thing anymore, really, and that Pelion is now the one in charge. I could actually buy that, which is sad, but oh well. Yes, so oh yeah, we have also another little thing, Leia. So Leia mentions her guards, like she's thinking about her guards, and she says that she doesn't really associate with them at all because like they seem to be a constant reminder that people want to kill her. And I was like, okay, yeah, I can sort of understand that. Yep, Leia's been the victim of quite a bit of times now as well. So I get that at some point she'd just be tired. But yeah, nothing really more to say about that. We have I think it's like in the Imperial Palace, we have a sign that says something about like no shots being shot in rage, and it says like 882 days. It was sort of treated as a joke, I think, in this chapter, but I think it's actually I guess it's somewhat of a nice idea to have that. Yeah, and that means we actually get how many days the books take place, because like towards the end of Shield of Lies, the clock has reached 1,000 days. So I guess like 120 or like 118 days. Yeah, that's the amount of days that has passed since that moment, I guess. Oh, yeah, exactly. I have something, and this might just be a translation issue, I'm not sure, but Han says yeah a lot, which is probably just a translation thing, because it would make sense in English for Han to say it, like somebody asks him something and he's like, yeah, but he says the thing in the German translation as well. He just says yeah, which is usually understood as like somebody trying to sound hip or something, which doesn't make sense for a 44-year-old Han Solo, I would say, but okay, whatever. It's translation thing. I'm always lenient towards those. We have something which also seems very sensible, which is that the Falcon was updated and now has like a lot of new technology, and just I don't think it has a lot of additional stuff, but just the parts that were there are just better now. That makes sense. I mean, it's sort of the meme, like, oh, Hans, like, that the hyperdrive doesn't work and it's sort of a junk ship, but it still has a lot of tricks. But yeah, I mean, you are a very important man. You have 3 children now. You don't necessarily want to leave them behind without a father. So yeah, you should get a better ship, or at least improve the one you have. So it's good that we have this. Oh yeah, exactly. So in the beginning, that's really the only moment he even is present is Chewie. Chewie wants to now return to Kashyyyk, specifically with the Millennium Falcon. I think it's just like what was it, like his son had was it a birthday or something, like an important, like a coming of age party or something like that, I think, and that's why he wanted to return to Kashyyyk. And he wants to take the Falcon. And Han really doesn't want to let him. And when the life debt of Chewie gets mentioned to him, he calls it a dumb thing, and that he'd happily let him go. I don't know what to think of that. Like, him not wanting to lend out the Falcon to Chewie. I think Chewie should be like one of the very, very few people who he wouldn't be reluctant to give the Falcon to.
Mm-hmm.
Like, if there's one person, it should probably be Chewie. And Luke and Lando, that's like arguable. You could say perhaps he would be a bit squeamish about that, but Chewie, like, and for a personal thing to see his family that he never sees actually, yeah, I didn't like that a lot, but I guess that I can sort of buy being somewhat in character. But yeah, him calling the life dead dumb, that seemed to be like really disrespectful for him, especially if we consider like how much Chewie has actually sacrificed to be at Han's side. It doesn't. I didn't think it was quite in character for Han to think that about something so important to
Yeah.
Chewie and ultimately to him as well. Yeah, especially if we consider that Chewie in the previous book, meaning Crystal Star, was actually like depressed and even I think suicidal, even because he considered it his fault that the Solo children were abducted.
Mm-hmm.
And coming out of this story, it doesn't make it better. Let's just say it like that. Yeah. Oh yeah. Okay. So I think Leia mentioned that was actually pretty funny. It's like when Han is like, no, I'm not gonna give him the Falcon, and Leia is like, oh really? Like you'd lose it during Sabak, but you wouldn't give it to your friend Chewie. And I like that. I like that joke because yeah, it's pretty stupid that Han lost to the Falcon again during Sabak. I don't like that scene, and I don't even
Mm-hmm.
think it's funny. So I actually like this joke here because it seems to make fun of that, which I appreciate. But yeah. Oh, okay. We have Han interacting with Lando now.
Mm-hmm.
I think it's. Oh no, no, it isn't Han. I'm sorry. It's I think it's Drayson. Exactly, yes. So we have another perspective, like shift of perspective. We have Drayson, who is an intelligence officer. He's talking to Han, and he's talking to Lando. Sorry, and he's talking to Lando by saying in the beginning, "I haven't heard from you since Mara resisted your charms." Yeah, I I like that joke as well. It's very fitting. I don't like Lando and Mara. It's a good thing that it's treated as a joke because
I like
that's
how all of the authors that art Anderson.
sort of at Handley, I guess. Yeah, they have their own little ways. It's either this or just the
I
Academy in general. Yeah.
You wonder because the Bantam authors do talk about the fact that they did talk to each other. You
Yep.
wonder if that was a thing that they had all like uh, agreed outside of Anderson that yeah, this is dumb. When you're writing your book, make sure to make something that says like yeah, this never happened.
That's I like imagining that they're all like at a round table. Barbara and Kevin are not invited. And it's like, yeah, we need to make fun of this. Like, Zahn is just gonna be Zahn. He's gonna be aggressive, and he's gonna say like, yeah, okay, all of this is bullshit. This was always stupid, and he's gonna take a big dump on it. Others are gonna be more subtle. Like, even I didn't expect this honestly because people were saying like, oh, Zahn was like the most aggressive one when it came to retconning or to recontextualizing things from Kevin, which I like. I'm sorry, I don't like anything really Kevin has changed about Star Wars, at least not in the Academy trilogy. So I don't have a problem with that, and I think it's merited that response. Stackpole is like a bit more sneaky, but he has his little jabs here and there, you could say. But even Alston in Starfighters of Aduma, there's this very little sentence, and I think it's easy to just read past that and not think about it any further. But there is a scene where we get the I think it's when we are introduced to the blaster swords, like the traditional swords on Aduma, and I think Wes is the one who really wants one, and I think Tycho speaks to Hobby, and he's like, let's not give Wes and like this as a new weapon. It's like giving a lightsaber to a 2-year-old, which I thought was a hilarious. It's the only jab that is there in the entire book, I guess, from Kwisatz, who got a lot more respect that she deserved, I would say, as a character. But yeah,
Yeah.
that's really the only time it gets a bit more cheeky, and I didn't expect that at all because as I said, you could just be like, yeah, that sounds ridiculous, and you would not read a lot more into that. But then you remember, oh wait, yeah, this actually happened in a book. So yeah. No, exactly. Yeah, this chapter, has a few jabs there, and I like that. And yeah, that's when I expressed my disbelief at the notion that I enjoy reading Lando parts. Yeah, that's a really new experience for me. So I was pretty happy because yeah, Lando. I mean, I really liked Lando in Return of the Jedi. Empire Strikes Back, he was cool, I guess, but Return of the Jedi is where I actually really liked him, and I want to have more stuff where he's cool, and to have this finally come true is actually pretty nice. At least like timeline wise, yeah, it's good that we get that because yeah, Thrawn trilogy has been away for quite some while now. We are very deep into the New Republic era, and yeah, it's good that we get something else. So just basic story synopsis of like what Lando's gonna do. There is a ghost ship, in a way, basically a phantom ship. It's called the Tailcon Vagabond. It's a very very strong ship that every time it gets approached like to a certain level, to a certain proximity, it starts basically firing like gigantic blinding lasers, and they usually just go away again. And the New Republic is understandably concerned about rogue ships just going around doing their stuff, not really being it's not really possible to stop them in any way, which never is good. So Lando's the little mission that Lando now is pushing himself into is to tail that ship and to try and just understand what's going on, taking it in, destroying it, whatever, just solving the mystery. And yeah, that part, I mean, we're gonna get more about that part, but I it's obviously a part that has nothing really to do with the main plot line. I mean, the Black Fleet crisis, that implies the center of the story is supposed to be the Yevethans because they have the Black Fleet. But yeah, this is really disconnected. I think Noah said like in Tyrant's Test that it sort of reconnects to the main story towards the end.
It
But
does.
okay, I mean that's good. I don't know if Luke and Arcana are gonna reconnect to the main plot. I mean, it's
Uh, that is the
but
part of the plot that reconnects. The Luke and the
oh
Lando plot is what reconnects.
oh, I see. Well, maybe they can do something interesting with that. But yeah, but exactly, it's a really separated thing. And I guess you could say like if you're not a fan of Black Fleet, you would still usually be a fan of the Lando parts. I mean, even Noah's like these parts are excellent. And yeah, I guess most people who don't like Black Fleet would be like, yeah, if you take out the Lando parts and make, I don't know, a solo novel out of that, or a novella, depending on how long it would end up being. Yeah, I think a lot of people like that. Yeah.
Yeah, even with the tie-in at the end of Tyrant's Test, the only thing the Lando plot really does is establish where C-3PO and R2, Lando and Lobot are during the events of everything else.
I mean, it's a question that was answered. That's always something that's appreciated. But yeah, exactly. I mean, it's an objectively good part. I can't say anything against it, but it's just a thing that I don't know. It pulls me out a bit. That's something I mentioned. That's one of the reasons I gave why I rated Courtship very lowly, is because the main like there is a clearly distinct main part of the book, which is what the name implies. It is, which is the courtship. So the other stuff that's going on next to it, which doesn't really connect, which would in that book would be like the Luke part. I like that, but no, it's not the main part of the story. So it's always kind of difficult to try and rate that, because sure, it's a good thing, but it has nothing really to do with what the book is supposed to be about. Yeah, but hey, there you go. At least there's questions answered. So,
By the way,
yeah.
to that earlier thing, because I was looking it up while we were talking, of
Mhm.
the 1,000 days without shots fired.
Yeah.
So that would be a little under 3 years of time,
Mhm.
right? So
Presumably, yeah.
3 years from the start of before the storm would be 13 ABY. So that would be Starfighters of Adamar, Planet of Twilight,
Mhm.
Crimson Empire 3, and the Crystal Star would be the main story. So I guess the last time would have been Starfighters of Adamar that's talking about, because that makes the most sense.
I get, because yeah, we have. I mean, I think, but I think the description specifically was like okay, I guess like not in self defense. That's not what they count, but it's like in rage or something, like being angry while shooting. That's what they mean. I don't know, but yeah, probably because Aduma, people from the New Republic actually contributed in a war. So yeah, I think that makes most sense, because Crystal Star doesn't really count. I don't think so. Crimson Empire 3 also not really, I think. And what was it? Planet of Twilight. Oh yeah, I mean,
Yeah,
yeah, that's also, it's never really the New Republic. It's just the big three, I guess, on doing their own thing, sort of. Yeah, whereas Starfighters of Adama is like actually going there with orders, trying to secure the planet, basically. Yeah. Yeah, no, so that's probably what it would refer to, yeah. Both of you and I ranked above Greyholm, so we're canonically cool. Hey, well, there you go. I'm on a higher tier than Greyholm. That's good to know. Yeah, I'm gonna rewatch that the VOD afterwards. Yeah. So exactly. Yeah. So that was chapter 3. Chapter 4. Oh, exactly. Yeah. Just another little translation thing that I thought was funny. It's there is there's a word in German which is called, like, if you say like, oh yeah, naturally this and this, you would say natürlich, which obviously sounds a lot like the English word. But there's another word that is called freilich, which is Bavarian accent, and we were just making fun of that because the translators, like the EU translators, most of them seem to be from Bavaria, so they put in their little accent there instead of the higher German word, I guess you would call it. So that was just a little thing
interesting.
I always think was sort of funny. We have that, like specifically that word freilich, we have that even in different novels at different times. And it's not always the same translator, but I think all, or at least most of them, seem to be from Bavaria. So that was just
I mean,
something funny.
most of the server Germans are from Bavaria, aren't they?
Probably Noah is from German. I think Yando Donner is from Bavaria. Sorry, not from Germany, from Bavaria. Yeah, yeah, I think that might be it. Yeah.
I've had two different jobs as well where I've
Hmm.
worked with Germans, and in every single case, they've all been from Bavaria as well. I don't know what it is, but
Mm.
like
Hmm.
90% of the Germans I know are from Bavaria,
I
which I wouldn't think.
I guess yeah, I guess if it's about working, the only thing I could think about is that Bavaria is the economically strongest state of Germany. That could be the reason. Like that's the only connection I see. Or and I think it's the highest populated, so I guess the likelihood of you meeting a German from Bavaria would be the highest, because
Mm,
the most Germans, like if you separate it by region, come from Bavaria.
mm.
That's I think it is, at least. So yeah, that's the only thing I could think about, really. But yeah, it's funny, right? The Bavarians are everywhere. Yeah. Um. Oh yeah. Oh, okay. We get another continuity thing, and we had, I think, specifically the talk about Yoda already at some point. I would have to think hard to remember which book it was. But Luke speaks about Yoda, and he says the following: like, when I met Yoda, he lived on Dagobah for at least 100 years. That's obviously not correct. We know
Yep.
that. But I don't know. I always wonder how they even how they even come up with it, just taking it from the OT. Because if I think, okay, the Civil War, sure, the Clone Wars, the Clone Wars are insinuated to be further back from the movies that they ended up being. I get that, but um, if Yoda is a Jedi Grandmaster, it
Mhm.
it sounds weird to me that he would, like, during the high times of the Republic, still live on a planet where essentially no one really can visit him without problems. That was just, I don't know. It's always somehow tied to Yoda. I've heard that specific thing, like how long he was on Dagobah, in another book already, and I don't know why. I guess they, you know, I mean, sure, we didn't have the prequels, but yeah.
Well, even in the OT, the line is Darth Vader helped the Emperor hunt down and destroy the Jedi. He
Yeah.
betrayed and murdered your father, right? So it's like if Yoda, and I think this is the thing that George said of like, oh yeah, the Jedi Masters would like just hang out on a planet and people would come to them for training. But if
Mm-hmm.
that was true and Vader was a former
Oh,
Jedi, he
yeah.
would know where all of the established masters were, and when he hunted down and killed them, he would have just gone to where they
Yeah.
hung out and killed them.
Oh, yeah, that's a good point, actually. I never thought about that. Exactly, of course. If he lived there for so long, it means he lived there in the time where Vader was Anakin Skywalker still. So of course, yeah, he would know where he is. And Yoda never left the planet. So true. That's actually pretty weird. Yeah. That's a thing that makes more sense in the prequels. I didn't think I would ever utter that sentence, but
Yep.
yeah, it's true. I mean, that's
Sometimes George's retcons make things better.
as weird as it sounds. Yeah, that is actually correct. George made sense of something that was not really sensible in the EU. I guess that's a thing now I have to accept, but it's actually correct. Yeah. Um. Okay. Oh, yeah. We get more about Luke. So Luke basically wants to quit everything. Um. He has this theory about Obi-Wan and Yoda, and I don't think I quite understood what exactly he meant, but let me try to get it correct. So basically, they weren't on Tatooine and Dagobah respectively because it would actually make them be safe from Palpatine. Because wait, I have to reread that sentence because that was a really weird part for me. Yeah, exactly. It wasn't that they hid because that actually would hide them from Palpatine, but they'd either in that case, if they wanted that, they'd either hide themselves like with the Force, which they could do on any planet in theory, or they could like either they can hide everywhere or they can hide nowhere.
Mhm.
That's what his theory was. Like I mean, if you have a presence in the Force that people can notice, that means that Palpatine could find you anywhere. So to counter that, you would use the Force yourself to hide yourself, but that would also mean that you could, in theory, hide anywhere. Um, I don't know what to. I mean, I have no clue what to think about that. I guess to an extent, sure. I would still expect Palpatine to be stronger than both of them in the Force. So whatever defense they can come up with Force-wise would be beaten by Palpatine eventually.
Yeah.
So, like, you may as well just go. Like, Tatooine and Dagobah, I mean, I haven't looked at like where they are on the map, on the galactic map, but I would suspect they're quite a bit outside of the spaces that people usually care about. So, like, you don't. I mean, sure, you could say like, oh, okay, they can use the Force and hide on Coruscant, but yeah, maybe that's not the smartest thing to do. Just
I
you
know
can
where
just go.
Tatooine is. I don't know where Dagobah is.
Yeah, I'm not. I think that was something I thought was actually funny when I saw the map is like just seeing which random planets I know from different stories are actually directly together. Yeah, but I'd have to look as well where exactly Dagobah is now, because yeah, it's somewhere there. But I'm just gonna. I think I. Oh yeah, that's actually a nice thing now that I mentioned it immediately, that Ferrera, which we talked about in Crystal Star, is next to Endor. That's actually nice to know. Yeah. Okay, yeah, Dagobah is like really down below. Exactly. That's a perfect mention. We have Sluis Van. I don't remember what exactly Sluis Van was, but I remember reading about the planet a lot already. And right there, next to it, is also Utapau. And Mustafa isn't that far away from it. So there you go. Yep. That's what's close to Dagobah, I suppose.
And then no, retcons are bad. Yep.
Yeah, that's
So
that's true.
I think the thing with all these Luke thing, like all this Luke, I think this Luke interpersonal stuff, like his existential crisis, is so unneeded because
Mm-hmm.
if we need the excuse for Luke going off with Arcana, the one that Arcana gives him, I think is plenty enough to excuse
Yeah,
why he drops everything. I don't think you need all of this.
you can have Arcana show up on Yavin 4. I mean, people know
Yeah.
where Luke Skywalker is. It's not a secret. He announced it to the entire galaxy.
Yeah.
You may as well just have her go there, or like he's on a visit on Coruscant, and that's when he gets the notification like, hey, there's someone who apparently has a really important message for you. You don't need to do this, because like when people try to basically fix this with a head canon, the two parts that usually will be brought up on why is Luke sort of shit is either it's the effects of Dark Empire or it's the effects of Callista. Which in theory I can sort of accept, but what I would say is that at some point there's an expiration date. Like, you only get to make inferences about his character based on these stories for a short period of time, I would say, or at least for a limited period of time. But if you haven't, like, if you're 5 years into the story and you haven't really done a whole lot with it, at some point you should just stop with it. You know what I mean? It's like, I don't know. Yeah. Exactly. Yeah. So, oh yeah, and he furthers his theory where he says that they actually forced themselves to be out of the action and to not constantly try to actively fight, because like apparently the thing of a Jedi is to either try and control everything around them, which would be like the extreme that Palpatine sort of symbolizes as trying absolute control, or just to not do it at all, which would be Yoda and Obi-Wan, who, of course, like in theory, they could still do good in the galaxy, but they don't. They choose to just stay out of it because that's a way to deal with it, and that's something I can buy a bit more, like as an additional reason why they went to the places they went to. I mean, Obi-Wan is also there because Luke is there, obviously, but especially Yoda being on Dagobah, it's like, yeah, you don't really want to attract a whole lot of attention, and being a Jedi doing Jedi things will attract that unwanted attention. It's actually very well played out in Kenobi, obviously. And yeah, but still, like, the actual hiding part should still be is still the biggest factor on why they are there. It's like, no, okay, we need to get physically away from people who want to kill us. Seems like a prudent thing to do. Yeah.
Yeah.
Exactly. So Luke is tired of people always wanting him to fix everything all day every day. Okay.
If only he knew.
If only he knew how things were. I mean, can I buy that somehow, that he just burns out? Sure, I guess. But that's something I brought up, is that, okay, the implication you get from that is a lot of Luke's personal problems are external. He's always under stress because other people give him a hard time because he's always supposed to do something. But then I think about just like the timeline. And basically, since the Thrawn trilogy, every problem that Luke ever has is entirely self-made. It sounds bad, but it's always his fault if something goes wrong around him. The Jedi Academy stuff, that's really his fault. Children of the Jedi, that's his fault, more or less. Darksaber, also. Planet of Twilight, the same. I mean, it's all. It's maybe it's weird to say Dark Empire obviously is his fault. I mean, whatever you want to say about the galaxy, sure, I understand that they would constantly annoy you with, hey, we need help here, we need help there, but yeah, the problems we read about are your fault, not the galaxy's fault. That's what I want to say with that. Yeah. I don't know. But yeah, and most people usually like just left him there in his jungle. At least from what I've understood. Like, yeah, I don't know. So Luke doesn't go to the academy anymore, but he also doesn't want to help the solo kids because he doesn't. So that's the reasoning he gives. He doesn't want to undermine the authority of Han and mostly Leia, obviously, by just fixing their problems. And Leia is supposed to and can actually do it on her own. I'm mixed about that. Sure, you could say like, okay, I'm really gonna pull out a bit concerning like me teaching them Force stuff because you can do this on your own, and I don't want to undermine you. Sure, but I mean, doesn't he have any interest in that? Like, just sometimes just checking on them. Hey, your Uncle Luke is here. Let's show what you've learned and
See,
whatever.
if I think if he had said that about someone like Corin and his, I don't know if Corin's kids are like even alive at this, like born at this point,
Mm-hmm.
but like one of those first class members that has actually kept up with their Jedi training and is a
Mm-hmm.
semi competent Jedi. I
Yeah.
think that makes sense. That
Mm-hmm.
does not make sense for Leia. What Jedi training has she, like? Yes, in theory she could, but like
Yeah.
she's not nearly at that point. I don't think at this stage in her development she's at the point where she can be trusted to train someone on her own. I think
No.
he needs to take the reins for her.
Like, probably an actual Force proficiency, like, her being used to stuff, she's below a Padawan, I would think. Like, she doesn't really, I don't imagine that she's sparring a lot with a lightsaber. I don't think she's trying to do projections or telekinesis usually. I don't believe that that's happening a lot with her. Yeah, like, and you're correct. Like, if it's a Praxium, if it's somebody who has actually gone through the entire training and now is an active Jedi for a bit, and it's also not Luke's direct family. That's also a big part of it. It's be like, okay, no, I don't want to. I don't want to try and put myself into what should be your position here, but it's his sister and it's his nephews and his niece. I don't think that is a good thing for. I mean, Luke should just generally care about being around for his family,
Yes.
even if it's not his own, quote unquote. It's still his family. And also, yeah, exactly. Leia is not someone who you should. Sure, Leia has no bad intentions, but you still shouldn't trust her with teaching the Force. Like, being taught by someone who means well but just doesn't know can also be really dangerous, because if there's something going very wrong, then they can't do anything because they are not prepared for that, but you would be. So yeah, bizarre thing. Luke. Oh yeah, Luke calls Han the best friend he could ever wish for. Just a little line I liked, because yeah, Luke and Han's relationship is always, I don't know. It's one I would say that's easy to write. That should be easy to write, let's say. But I don't know. It's going. It does sometimes go back and forth a bit. Um, yeah. So I like that we have an acknowledgement. Okay, no, we are best friends actually, because yeah, that makes sense. We are shifting the exactly, we are shifting the perspective again. We are back to Lando. So Lando is gonna take 3PO, R2D2, and also the now administrator of Cloud City, Lobot, with him. And yeah, like I said, it's just cool that he's back. Because we haven't done anything really with them since Empire Strikes Back. I would at least say so. And yep, their interactions, they just have witty, like humorous interactions with each other. Whereas Lobot, of course, I mean, it's the first time we even get to hear Lobot speak anything. Of course, he's more robotic in a way that he behaves. He's an android, obviously, so that's his speciality that we know. And but he has this, like, you could almost call it like a dry humor way of looking at some things, especially if they are concerning Lando, and Lando is just being who he should be, just like a bit of a jokester, but serious when he needs to be serious. And yep, their interactions are really, I mean, like I said, I'm at the end of Shield of Lies. Their interactions are great throughout so far, and I don't expect Tyrant's Test being worse in that capacity. They work very nicely with each other. So exactly. So the thing is, though, Lando doesn't do the mission alone. He is just supposed to join a mission that's already gonna happen even without him. So he is like being himself, sort of. He's talking himself into getting an actual parking spot. So there's a big ship of General. It was the name. It was a weird name. Pak Picard, I think, was the name. Who, of course, like, they don't really want to let him park there because he's sort of the outsider that pushed himself into the mission in the last minute, and he's just like trying to be convincing, like, he's to find a good parking spot, first of all, for the Lady Luck, and then being a more active part of the mission. Of course, he would have been relegated to just stand on the sidelines for this one, because yeah, the military guys don't really seem to want him around, especially the general. But Lando actually sells his importance really well, which is that everyone present, of course, is part of the military, so they know what it's like to be a soldier. But Lando says, like, the thing we are gonna do, like chasing around all of this stuff, that's something I have more experience with. Specifically those who have been around since the rebellion and have been, and also Lando being, sort of a criminal, I guess, still, who are, more used to underground tactics, you could call them. Makes him a valuable asset. At least that's how he sells himself, and that's good. I like Lando because he is able to sell himself well. And oh yeah, one of the things that, of course, Lando brings up is that he was pretty central to destroying the Death Star, meaning he was the one who actually destroyed the second Death Star.
Mhm.
And so Park Picard, so he's a Hortec who has the local command there. He undersells the fact that they actually defeated Vader and Palpatine, and obviously also destroyed the Death Star, as an old story, and that the rebels were lucky. And yeah, I thought this was a bit jarring to me, because sure, it's been a while, and I get that, but this should still be a really, really big deal. Like, I don't know. Yes, that was a long time ago, so it's still pretty impressive, and I have not lost anything about me that made me succeed in that place. So I don't know. It's I mean, I was like, okay, it could be just like a heat of the moment argument sort of thing that they had there, but yeah, I wasn't a big fan of that comment. So, chapter 5. Okay. In chapter 5, we get introduced to Niels Spa again. So now he is the viceroy of the Dashkan League. So the Dashkan League is basically like the governing body in a way that's in control of the Kornacht star cluster. And exactly, so, and he knows. Oh yeah, he says, so that's a little monologue that he has. He says he knows that he controls more riches and industrial might than anyone who was in Imperial City in the last 12 years. I guess this would mean, I'm not sure if it's supposed to just reference the people who governed the government that was in charge of Coruscant, but I was like, okay, this would in theory also include Hapis, because I mean they were on Coruscant less than 12 years ago. So yeah, I don't know. That sounds very fantastical to me, that they have so much military strength. Because sure, the Imperials left a fleet there. I get that, but I mean, isn't Hapis like really a lot of planets that are all
It's
of them are
63, I think.
63? Yeah, and Kornacht is what, like 20 planets, was it?
Mm-hmm.
I think only that little. You missed my Discord, man. Dylan is higher than you. Well, that's just you, Noah. But of course, like if Dylan is above me, I can understand that. I've heard that I've been placed above Greyholm, so I accept that. I'm sure a reason why I was ranked below is probably because I don't like Dark Empire and Courtship. I'm pretty sure if I watch the stream back, that's gonna be the justification for me. No, but hope you had a fun stream, genuinely. Yeah. Exactly. Yeah. No. We actually get a number. So only 11 planets are inhabited by Yevethans, and at least 17 by other species. So I guess that's the entire Kornacht cluster. Yes. Yeah. I mean, that was predictable. Dark Empire means minus for you. I get that. I guess if I would have reached the Denningverse already, you might have ranked me higher because I might have agreed with you. But there you go. There you go. Exactly. Yeah. And in theory, oh yeah, exactly, because in Dark Empire, the Coruscant is back in control of the Empire again, which would also mean that the industrial might of and the military might of the Yevethans is above the Dark Empire, which I'm not sure I buy that, because the Dark Empire had a comical amount of ships, which I guess is, yeah. I mean, yeah, pun intended. But yeah.
They had at least one superstar destroyer and the Galaxy gun.
Mm-hmm. World Devastators.
Yeah.
They are pretty big deal. I am, and it's a problem that extends to Shield of Lies for me a bit, and I'm suspecting that in Tyrant's Test it's gonna be the worst for me. Is that I can buy to an extent that the veterans are very advanced, but I don't know, that there needs to be a clear cutoff point for me, and I don't feel like there is one. I don't know.
This is getting way too into the autism of like ship specs, but
Mm-hmm.
one of my biggest problems with the Avethan and like their power level is that the way he describes the thrust ships as being like super weapons, when like they actually have less firepower than a Nebulon B frigate, which is funny
Mm-hmm.
because that's the cover of a Shield of Before the Storm.
Uh-huh. Yeah. It's no, I mean, but it is important that we think about that, because yeah, like we have this species that is very, very powerful, and I can at least buy that no one really knows about them because they've kept them to themselves. I suppose that's a thing, and that's fine. And it's also understandable, like the Imperials have left their stuff around there, and the resources are of course still available, but and I buy also that the Yevithans were strong, like were intelligent before, but yeah, I don't know. I mean, they have never learned the theory about how all of these ships work, or at least I would imagine Like
So
they.
not only have they not learned the theory, but they so the Empire's design philosophy for shipbuilding,
Mm-hmm.
um, especially with the Star Destroyers, is like that dagger shape, that dagger triangular shape is there
Yeah.
for a reason. It's so that all of the firepower of the Star Destroyer can all be concentrated in a forward arc. So if you position your Star Destroyer to where it's pointing at what you want to shoot out, all of your primary batteries can fire unobstructed.
Yeah.
The Vethans thrust ship, they have the opposite mentality where their ships are designed so that no matter in which direction you attack it from, three of its primary guns are able to fire at
Mm-hmm.
in any direction. It's like a
Yeah.
completely different shift in design philosophy from what the Empire had done.
Mm-hmm.
Which, if
Okay.
they're just copying what the Empire did, doesn't make sense unless they're so intelligent that they were able to figure out both how they worked and say,
Yeah.
"Oh, this is a terrible design. We're going to do it this way instead." Which I don't know if
Mm,
he's properly demonstrated they are able to.
exactly, because like if the Yevethans if the Yevethans you know escaping imperial control would have been like generations ago, that would have made sense to me that at some point they might have learned about this stuff. But exactly, like Niels Spar was one of the people who yeeted them out of the system. So it's like exactly at some point, I mean, I get maybe they can repair that stuff, but I don't think they have they constructed ships under imperial control there. I always understood as they just repaired the ones
Mhm.
that are there. And
Just a real world
mhm,
um, example, almost immediately when Japan ended its isolation, um, it quickly started an alliance with Britain and with the British Empire and built a lot of its political structures around the British Empire. And one thing that they wanted to copy and emulate was the British Navy, and they wanted
mhm,
so they use British dockyards and British shipbuilding and learned from them how to eventually produce their own ships.
yeah,
That relationship started in the 1860s. Japan wasn't able to make their own battleships until the 1920s.
yeah, which sounds realistic to me because that's not easy. And we're only talking about like normal ships. Like this
Mhm.
is spaceships, and um, especially when they attack, the book does make a point of mentioning that there are ships that are built in an imperial way that currently attack them, which in this book is an indicator that it's Yevithans, because of course they have taken imperial ships. But exactly, like I don't even if Yevithans are generally like apt to learn more about this stuff, I don't buy that Niels Spar, who was already seemingly an adult when he was enslaved during the imperial time, has
Mhm.
just learned, or like that people around him have just learned the entire theory of how even all of this stuff that's inside there works, and build something so fantastic there that they can declare themselves like so strong. Because I mean, Niels Spar he's arrogant, I guess, but he's not unrealistic, I would say. So I don't think it would just be him gloating like, "Oh yeah, we are so much better than anyone." That's like I don't know. It's He doesn't seem to be the guy who would just do that, especially when he points, like when he makes the point to not just accept people being flattering to him. So it seems like a weird thing for Niels Spar to think. And yeah, I would say it has to be an incorrect thing, because if the strongest military might in the galaxy is one that just got into this position sort of by chance, that's I don't know. That sounds a bit weird to me. Um, oh, okay, yeah, we get something that obviously isn't correct in the timeline, is that Darla apparently is in the deep core. That's not
Mhm.
correct. We know that. Um, Niels Spar. Okay, so Niels Spar isn't interested in being a member of the New Republic. He somewhat seems to like despise the weak people who join the New Republic to get the protection from Coruscant. And he says, like, because of course Leia, when she starts to learn about the people and how strong they are, especially, of course, they'd rather have them as allies than as potential enemies. And he kind of like, no, we had enough protection from the Emperor. Yeah, I mean, from Leia's perspective, I can sort of get why that would make sense to her. Oh, yeah. Okay, we had something that apparently happened during the time of the Empire, which might be him just lying to get sympathy, but I could buy that this was actually happening. Is that male Yevithans were used as target practice by the Imperials, while female Yevithans were used in, well, the way you would expect, I guess. Yeah, I don't know. How do I have to look it up? How do Yevithans actually look like? Because
You
aren't they
don't
like
want to
short,
know.
right?
They do not look
Oh,
appealing.
yeah. Okay, yeah. So quite a bit of Imperials. Jesus, they look like a Wendigo or something. Really,
Yeah.
really, really disgusting creatures. And yeah, some Imperial officers apparently wanted something of that. So let's just let it stand there on its own. Okay, so yeah, Leia is basically offered to. That's a thing that Drayson is gonna do, who we got introduced to earlier. I think he offers her to record the conversation that she's gonna have with Neil Spar. But and Leia refuses to. So of course, because like if we were found out, it would be pretty bad. But as I knew from that moment when she said, "No, I'm not gonna do it," is that Neil Spar is definitely gonna do it, which he of course did. I don't understand. I mean, we don't get a really what he used. I think he just used some recording device. We don't understand quite how he got through security. Perhaps there even wasn't any. I don't know. It's not specified. It just stands on its own. I don't like that it's just played off, but there you go. That's it. But Drayson, even though Leia has declined recording the conversations, he instead chooses to use spy tools. I think he's like bugging the room basically. He's still using spy tools to record the conversations. And I was like, yeah, I mean, Neil Spar was. I think he seemed a bit suspicious right from the get go, and to be a bit more paranoid about this, I don't feel like it's senseless. I think it's a good decision. So yeah, there you go. But that's just it. I was hoping, okay, perhaps we're gonna get some advantages because Drayson is doing that. So yeah, that was chapter 5. So 6. Oh yeah, okay. There is a sentence that is like Luke wore clothes out of a habit, but this habit got weakened. And I didn't quite understand. Am I supposed to understand that Luke is now gonna walk around naked if he's losing the habit of walking around in clothes? I will. Maybe it's just a specific type of clothing they meant, but it was
Well,
funny in that.
I think it was Crystal Star established that he can like make himself look different to people, right?
Yeah, he does in these books as well. Yeah.
So is he just walking around naked and like projecting like that he has clothes on to everyone around him?
Which would be funny because that means Arcana is seeing him naked all the time because she can look through it. Yeah, you could perhaps think that. I mean, sure, it's your you don't have to spend money on clothing and on washing them all the time. I guess you could say like, yeah, there's an economical advantage to that.
But where does he keep his lightsaber then? Because there's the or
He
is that in Shield of Lies, the customs thing of they thinking it's a razor?
that I think that, yeah, I remember reading that, so I think it was in Shield of Lies that scanners usually portray his lightsaber as though it's a razor. Yeah, that's I think in Shield of Lies exactly, which is also an interesting thing. But yeah, I suppose maybe he's walking around naked. Maybe we don't even really want to know. I just guess
I
that's it.
don't actually.
Yeah, same. Okay, so now we get introduced to, unfortunately, a quite central part of this book, which is Arcana of the Felonessy. So, okay, yeah, she says that apparently she was able to sense Luke from 40 parsecs away. He somehow got around his defenses. Oh yeah, so just for context, Luke has gone away now. Going away for him though means going, I think, like to a beach on Coruscant, where he's like hidden away, and he has like defenses around the place so people don't find it. I guess that was what it was meant to be. And yeah, she sends him from 40 parsecs. She got around these defenses, and she comes to him to tell him that she knows his mother, who is apparently a Felonessy herself, called Nashira. I mean, I think I've heard people say that this is supposed to be a lie by Arcana, that actually she doesn't, which I just assume so. I mean, we obviously know that it actually isn't the case, but it might have been just like an early thing because before we determined who Luke's actual mother was. But yeah, I think Arcana is just lying about that. That's what I would imagine. But yeah, we get no further specification about that really for now. Okay, so apparently Arcana knows about Vader and Return of the Jedi, like just the happenings of Return of the Jedi in general, and how Luke almost fell to the dark side. So that that formulation made me think, because she knows that he almost fell to the dark side. That means she can't speak about Dark Empire, because I would argue he did fall to the dark side in Dark Empire, and that could only leave Return of the Jedi behind. So I was just confused how exactly that works, and I guess she sensed that through the galaxy, perhaps. I don't know. Yeah, that's just the thing. And apparently Vader also seems to be the reason why Luke has no children. That's, I think, at least what she theorizes, because like he fears that the same stuff will all happen to his children. Yeah, I don't know. I mean, obviously he still doesn't have a wife, so of course he's not gonna really have any children. But yeah, usually it's Leia's relationship to Vader that's really going back and forth depending on what the plot needs the relationship to be. But it's sort of the same for Luke and Vader now as well, because I don't think Luke really corrects her about this. He just lets it stand. So yeah. Oh yeah, Luke is being just a little bit whiny. He doesn't want to train his nephews because he'd apparently do more harm than good. That's what he says, which is bullcrap. That's not true. I mean, that's just objectively not true. And he complains that he's like a curiosity to people. Yeah, I was again like, all his problems since the Throne trilogy are entirely self-made. So I don't understand what exactly he's getting at. And of course, he's not gonna do more harm than good if he trains the Solo children. That's just stupid. He's gonna like just the fact that I would assume it's really dangerous to have Force users who can use the Force but don't quite understand what is correct and what not. I would assume that's a lot more dangerous because they can destroy a lot of stuff and not control it even. So yeah, and Luke should know this because he too was once a learner. He didn't know about the Force, so yeah, I don't understand what this is. Yeah, Luke apparently, so Luke is going to Leia and basically wants to convince her to join Arcana or something, and he apparently wants to go through Leia's head about the information on their mother. But yeah, Leia doesn't believe that Arcana is legit,
Mhm.
and she essentially tells him to F off.
Yeah, she's
And
like, I have had like 30 different people come up and like try to
Mhm.
claim that they're my mom. Stop.
which seems like it would happen. Yeah,
Yeah.
sure. That would probably happen. Like, yeah, she was like, crazy old grandmas are coming here every day, basically telling me that they are my long lost mother, and I don't believe this single one who has now come to you has any more credence than they have. And yeah, that's really bad. And there is no reason. And she's basically like, you don't seem to be able to find peace and just move on, which is sort of ironic for Leia to say, but it's true. Like, we have to accept that we will never know who our mother is, and I'd rather just focus on my family instead of trying to cry about what I've lost, which is a very sensible thing to say. And yeah. Oh yeah, we're at chapter 6. We have spoken quite a bit. I'm trying to move a bit quicker. I don't want to keep doing it forever, but yeah, there you go. And hey, you haven't read Before the Storm yet, Sivat. I know that. So you can read for yourself, and then you there you can see it, what there is to talk about. No, exactly. Yeah. It's sort of ironic for Leia to be that character to tell Luke this, like, just leave it be, because yeah, Luke never really. I think that's the first time Luke really thinks about his mother a lot. Like,
Mhm.
that never really seemed to happen before. Apart
Yeah.
from like her being mentioned in a sentence like, "Oh, I don't remember my mother at all" in Return of the Jedi.
It doesn't really play a role until Dark Nest,
Oh,
because in Dark Nest, through the most convoluted way possible, he finds out exactly who she is.
oh yeah. I think Noah described it as R2D2 basically shows him a DVD of the prequels, and that's how Luke learns
Yeah,
everything.
yes. Like R2 was
Uh,
for some reason recording that whole time.
yeah. Um. Okay, whatever. Yeah. Let's we'll get to that at some point, and I'll talk about it plenty, I think. Yeah. Um. Okay. Apparently, yeah. Leia explicitly still doesn't rely on the Force, which I don't like it. Still, it's probably a problem with the publication order, but still, it's something that always is brought up with Leia, and I don't
Mhm.
like it. She just, yeah, like I
It,
said,
it's
like, yeah.
there's so many issues in the Bantam era that are just like all of the authors had like the same story ideas, and
Hmm.
but like they talked a lot, but they didn't like talk about everything, so they just rehash
Yeah,
the same plot threads over and over again.
it's so weird, and there's a lot of stuff you could have done with Leia before to still give her something political to do, while also giving her time to A, raise her children, and B, learn about being a Jedi. Like, just a off my head suggestion that I made when I thought about this. I don't know, make her the senator of Yavin or something, and she's like mostly concerned with what Luke is doing uh, in the Jedi Academy, and is like representing that towards the Senate, which means also she doesn't have a lot to do, but she can learn about like politicking and all of this stuff. And then later on, like, i guess I guess during Hand of Thrawn, perhaps, when at some point it's more of a Jason Jaina focus or Anakin focus that's supposed to be put up, then you can move them to the background and have them be
Mhm.
chief of state and
Or
whatever.
or
Yeah.
you could just do it Zahn did in Hand of Thrawn and say, oh yeah, she's taking a brief leave of absence from being chief of state, so there's another chief of state.
Well,
Just
yeah, that sounds like such a smart thing to do, actually. It's yeah, the leave of absence thing, that's something I remember not so fondly about about Leia's position. I still remember in the Thrawn trilogy when I read that, like, she was 8 months pregnant, and Mon Mothma wouldn't leave her alone, which I get for Mon Mothma because she's a zealot essentially. But yeah, and then in courtship you get that she was she got a leave of absence for 8 months. I think that's the longest vacation Leia would have ever gotten in her life, probably.
Mhm.
Yeah. Well, stuff happened, but yeah. oh yeah, let's just take vacation. There can be someone else, right? Oh yeah, that's actually not a problem. Why haven't we thought about that earlier? Yeah, that's a thing. Okay. Oh yeah, and one scene Yoda was written with a J in the book. I don't get if that was just in the German version, but for a single time it was written with a J instead of a Y. That was just funny. Luke once again uses the term freilich. We had that before, and okay, Leia seems as though she's over Vader and also her mother, which I like. Thank Christ. I hope at some point we just move away from that, because yeah, your kid is named Anakin. I'm sorry. Like every internal conflict should be gone after the fact that you've that you've named your son after Darth Vader. Like sorry. No, but yeah, she accuses Luke of like being obsessed with the past and never being able to let go. And how if their mother was alive, she would have probably visited them a long time ago, which is also true. Like if there actually was a mother, she would have been here already. And there's just yeah, exactly. There's a bunch of like crazy grandmas coming in there every week claiming that they are the mother, which makes sense. So yeah, Leia, that was Leia at her most sensible, I think. Leia says yeah, she wants to focus on her future more, how they should tell the kids like more about Owen Beru and about Bail Organa instead of like people who actually cared about them, instead of the other people, because their family simply isn't normal, which is also true. It is not. It's very special. She wants that her children at some point tell their children normal family stories and not like the fucked up things that she would have to talk about if she were honest, really. And yes, she basically tells Luke to fuck off with the past out of her house and bathe himself in it if he so wishes, which was a very funny way of expressing herself, but I 100% agree with her. Like, yeah, it seems as though Luke wants to feel miserable in this for no reason, out of the sudden, really. But yeah, I I get that Luke is curious about his mother being potentially alive. I understand, but yeah, and to a degree, he's like he's just sacrificing what's here and now, and it's not healthy the way that he acts. And Leia's correct about him in that regard. Yeah, but Luke, of course, doesn't listen. He goes with Arcana, and they go to a planet called Lukasek. There is no real proof that anything Arcana claims is correct in any way. No real proof, meaning that there is no proof. But yeah, he just goes with her. Yeah, and apparently the personal info she has about him is partly a public knowledge, apparently, but also partly her just seeing it in his eyes, which is a nice way of saying I don't know how she knows, but she does. Chapter 7 exactly. So that was chapter 6. Chapter 7. Yeah, there's not a whole lot to talk about the Lando part here. It's just Lando and Pac-Picard have a really nice chemistry as characters. I think they have a quite interesting relationship, the way they talk to each other, and they interact in pretty cool and believable ways, at least for Lando. I mean, Pac-Picard is a new character, I would guess, but yep, I think Lando is he's appropriately written, really, and I really appreciate that. Exactly. So apparently there's like a recovery mission going on, and we're even getting like introduced to an entire office that was created after the Thrawn trilogy, which is to categorize all ships that have ever been sighted, with the specific purpose of not being overwhelmed by the enemies like there were back in the day with the Katana fleet, which I think is a really sensible thing to do, because yeah, there is no use, like there can only be a plus side to knowing all the ships. Like there's no downside to knowing, so why not? Yeah. And I think it's only like one dude who keeps doing it now, because usually people moved out to other. Just they branched out. They got higher positions at other places, but he actually really cares about that. So yeah, just a nice little thing here. Okay, and apparently, so there is a ship which is called the Gniznal. I think it was an Imperial ship, yeah. And what they managed to retrieve from that was a memory core. In that memory core, we had full battle plans of an entire fleet under the command of the Black Sword, which was the Black Sword, I think, was the leading Star Destroyer, which was never found by the New Republic at any point. So, and one of the places that the New Republic determines it could still be at is the Kornacht star cluster, which leads them to believe that there still might be, like, perhaps an alliance there between the Yevithans and the Empire, but or that Spa, who at this point still has like very fruitless negotiations with Leia, is actually hiding the Black Fleet, quote unquote. Yep, there's not much more to say about this chapter. It's just building up here. It's just a slow burn. Chapter 8. Oh yeah, we have something interesting. I guess that's also a translation error here, or just a misspelling, is that we get introduced to a character called Abat, who is a fleet commander. But in the beginning of Before the Storm, he's actually spelled Abath. So like not B-A-H-T, but B-A-T-H. But that's like for the first half of the book. And then in the second half of the book, he's actually spelled how he's supposed to be spelled, with H-T instead of T-H at the end. Don't know why, but that was just funny to me. Exactly. So Akbar and Abad, they get the information about the Black Fleet and where it might be. And they, of course, go to Leia. Leia is not convinced that A secret fleet even exists, or that B, it's in any way a substantial threat to their prepared military. And they bring up the fact that, secret forces, like that's how that's how they won. So I don't know, the New Republic, or let's say the rebels, they won with having forces that people didn't really know about. So while Leia is getting so defensive about, oh no, we are prepared for that, like, don't worry, there's nothing substantial that could be thrown our way. That's very weird, especially for someone who knows the other side. Like, she should be very careful with that, because she knows how effective someone who's hiding from, who's operating from the shadows can be. I don't know. It was weird for me to hear that from Leia. I mean, I get being skeptic towards the information presented, but that was weird to me. Oh yeah, a little line we get there that was also just funny. Is it's impossible they were operational for 10 years, which just reminded me of Dala, because Dala was operational for, how long was it? Even 12 years, I think. So yeah. I agree it sounds stupid, yeah. That's just fun. So we have a really rough interaction between Akbar and Leia, who are really a bit against each other in this book, which, I mean, sort of makes sense in a way, but still. He says that he respects that they will search for the Black. So what Leia essentially allows them to do is to search for the Black Fleet with with a few resources, but not to go inside the Kornacht cluster, because the Yevithans are really protectionist. They don't want to have anyone go to places that they are not welcome to. And the entire star cluster is basically that sort of place. Akbar says that he will respect that they will search for the Black Fleet in only the relevant sectors without Kornacht, like to not anger Spa. And she says to him, like, that they should be grateful. She even accepted that they sent the whole Fifth Fleet, so the Fifth Fleet from the beginning of the book there, and that he shouldn't lecture her. I don't know. I didn't have the feeling as though Akbar was really lecturing her. It was just like, hey, this is really pressing, and I think this Spa dude is hiding something, probably hiding something quite substantial from us. Leia making that out to be being lectured to. I don't know. That didn't quite fit for me. I didn't get the feeling that this was it. But yeah. Yeah, so apparently Leia and Spa, they still have fruitless negotiations. And apparently it's basically like just talking what they are doing. Like they are just talking. And it's been going on for 2 months. And now she starts to wonder whether there's actually any possibility and that she thinks that Spa, so that's her theory. She thinks that back on Enzoth, people don't agree with Spa, and that he is buying time for her until he can convince the other politicians on his planet to actually join the New Republic, because he seems as though he's a nice guy. Yeah, I don't know. That sounds like negotiating for 2 months. I mean, like, I don't know. How long can you negotiate? Like, I mean, the conferences after World War II, how long did they take? Like, I don't imagine they took that long. Perhaps they did, and I just don't know. But 2 months seemed a lot of time, especially if she says that they are just talking. Yeah, I don't know. Leia, once again, is overwhelmed by the position of being chief of state, and she's thinking about how others could probably do it better. I mean, I sort of agree. I like Leia, but I mean, she was she still in her 20s when she was becoming chief of state? I think she was, right? So, or
Yeah, it was in. She became chief of state at the end of Jedi Academy.
yeah, exactly. So late 20s, early 30s, I think, somewhere around that time frame. Yeah, that's I agree. She's far too young to be chief of state. Yeah. Okay, so one of the reasons that they have determined with that that the Black Fleet is in Connacht is that there were, or that they used to be, like, specific shipyards there, and Leia asks Spa about those shipyards, and she, because of course we've gotten a list with names and everything. Akbar is currently searching for those, and she actually gives him the list to, like, because he's like, oh yeah, give me this. I'll look through our records if we have anything there. I don't think so, but we might have. Yeah, and she gives him the entire list, which of course now the surprise element that they even know of this fleet is gone, of course, because now Neil Spa knows, and Neil Spa isn't quite as nice as he seems to be. Yeah, surprise element gone. Whatever, it's going away. And also something I didn't quite understand that is that Leia apparently is specifically isolated by him, in that she doesn't talk about any of her plans with her advisors anymore. That seems really naive to me. I don't know. That she's just talking to Spa all day, every day, and not to her advisors. Perhaps.
Yeah.
Yeah, that should be around it.
Especially with how long the negotiations are taking.
Yeah. It's like, hey, this isn't going anywhere. Like, you guys have any ideas? What are we gonna do? Like, perhaps not right at the beginning, because she wants to focus a lot of time, but even then, I don't buy it. Yeah, and as you said, especially towards the end, where things are just not moving in any way. Yep, that's a really, really bad thing. Yeah, and Abad and Akbar, instead, they are pretty reasonable, because of course the Yevithans say there is no such ships. They say, okay, like, we have no proof. We just have the words of the Yevithans. Leia's counter to that is, I trust Spa.
Why?
I don't know. He has not given her any reason to, but she trusts him now. Abad, understandably so, accuses her of being sheltered, which I would have never levied against Leia until this point, but the way she talks about people makes this to be an actually really credible accusation, because she acts as though adults, like as a child, thinking adults can't be wrong and can't do wrong. Yeah, and that's the chapter, I guess. Oh no, wait, I'm sorry, I have 2 notes, so chapter 8 is even going on. Yeah, Akbar brings up an interesting point, actually, which is that they have to be he brings up whether they are ready to accept that they now are a superpower, and that how freedom of moving through space is basically a core tenet of the New Republic, and it's pretty meaningless as a principle if they don't actually stand for it, because yeah, that's true, they don't go to Kornacht, even though they don't, not that they don't land on a planet or anything, but they aren't actually flying through the space that belongs to the cluster, which is a good thing to bring up. Is, he accepts that they don't do it for now, but not that they don't have any right to do that, which is basically what's implied. Like, hey, we have no right to go there. That's like Kornacht. That's their thing. It's like, no, we don't believe that this is a thing that is acceptable. Yeah, which is correct. Abad also brings up something really smart, which is that, friendship doesn't make an alliance, but it's respect for each other's interests that do, which is correct. Of course, being all cool with each other, that's not enough for an alliance. Leia accuses him of being cynical. No, he's just realistic. I'm sorry. There's nothing really more that you can say about that. He's realistic. Yeah, Akbar again, he brings up that they can't just act all nice to someone because, they might not ally themselves with them. And that, even though the New Republic believes in equality, they need to defend their interests first. Which is, it's all good for Akbar and Abad, who's also a new character in this, to point this out. But it's not good that they have to argue against Leia with this, because this is something I feel like Leia should know. This could be an argument against someone else who doesn't have the knowledge that Leia has, but Leia should know absolutely about this. I mean, yeah, she has been chief of state for a few years now. She should have learned about that at some point. It's like, yeah, we can be nice, we can be cooperative, that's all good. Nobody's against that, but we have core principles that we need to respect, and if we are bending them or just outright acting against them to try and get someone to ally with us who wouldn't ally themselves with us otherwise, yeah, that's it's not good for Leia to be like this. And he even threatens to, Akbar even threatens to leave if she doesn't let him do what he wants to do, which I think is good that he does it. Yeah, and I mean, Planet of Twilight later on also had to defend the same. I mean, in Planet of Twilight, Leia was like that, like how Akbar is now, and it actually made more sense. Unfortunately, in Planet of Twilight, is that, yeah, I mean, it's sad that you guys, being settlers and all, are not really given a whole lot of opportunities. But then again, you left the New Republic. You're on planets now that aren't really of our concern. It's their decision to be like that. It's not anything specifically horrible. So it's like, yeah, that's we have to defend our interests. I'm sorry, that's correct. Yeah. But Leia. So now Abad, of course, goes to search for the Black Fleet. But Leia doesn't trust him and instead sends Han to be her informant because he is the only one she fully trusts. And who's gonna take care of the children now? Of course, it's Winter. And I just had to laugh. Okay, it's Winter again. Imagine you're James Bond and you always have to babysit the Queen's daughter because she wants to go go away and run off, or the king's children. Yeah, that's really cool, really meaningful. Um, yeah, that's when I determined, okay, Leia is really falling apart now. I really liked Leia with Luke, but I guess that was just her responding to Luke not being a good character. Now she's, I don't know, she just really fell apart to me. And yeah, that's real. And we had the discussion, yesterday where Magneto Alex put up the theory that, or perhaps this is because now it's public knowledge that she is Vader's daughter, and she feels as though she needs to prove that she is a peaceful leader, she's not a dictator and whatnot. I don't know. I don't quite get this from the book. I don't get enough hints at this. This is the reason why she behaves the way she does. And I feel like this would be something she might bring up with Akbar if it was actually her concern. Like, hey, I understand this might not be how I would usually act, but people are getting skeptical towards me because I'm Vader's daughter, even though I would think that's stupid, but whatever. And I need to, I can't be that interventionist. I need to calm down a bit. And if she brought that up with Akbar, I could buy this a whole lot more, that she is so timid. But I don't get enough hints from the book that this is the reason why she's doing that well. Yeah. That's chapter 8. Chapter 9. We are back with Lando and Packpicard. They are just tailing the vagabond. When they are really close to it, it basically, like, it creates a very loud sound of unknown meaning. And Packpicard believes that it's like simply an alarm or something. But Lando, he is under the impression that it's like a test of intelligence. Like there is something that the ship is trying to signal to us with this, and we just don't know what exactly it is. But nobody really believes him, which means that the team, meaning Lando, Lobot, and the droids, will try to hijack the ship. They want to, like, press the advantage that they have, but Park Picard instead, like, he brings up how well shielded their ships are against the attacks of the Vagabond, which, I mean, he knows that it's destroyed ships already and, like, left them behind as wrecks. So I don't quite get why he's pointing out how well shielded they are, because he should know that they are not enough. But that was weird. Exactly. So Lando basically wants to quickly find a way to determine what the signal meant to stop the attack. And the theory is that the loud sound of the ship was just it giving, like, an ID signal, and that the lack of response was treated as a threat. It's not escaping further because, like, the ship might be old enough where interditas aren't a thing. So I have to think. So it's not escaping further because the ship might be old enough. Yeah, exactly. Yep. Did you want to say something?
Interdictors have been a thing. Well,
I think it's specifically when the Vagabond was constructed.
Yeah, I'm trying to think back when it's like, because I know there's interdictors in the Old Republic because of SWTOR. So
yeah, I guess
they may
so.
have retconned it to be to functioningly work. I don't know if what was known at the time, which of the Old Republic, which is basically just Tales of the Jedi, if they even considered the possibility that interdictors was a technology they had access to.
Yeah, because, like, I'm trying to. Yeah, I think my phrase that I wrote down here was a bit confusing, but basically there's a function of there's a lack of function in the design of the Vagabond, that people have attributed to, okay, perhaps interdictors were not a thing at the time where it was constructed, so there is no response to the threat of an interdictor. I'm not quite sure what exactly was. There was like automatic controls that somehow didn't work that way, and they would have worked otherwise if interdictors were factored in. But yeah, I mean, with SOTA, probably that probably would be considered a retcon. I'm also not sure they ever got. Do we have them in any prequel books? Interdictors?
I think the technology exists. I don't remember them though.
Might be, yeah. Because yeah, I mean, at this point we don't know how old the Vagabond is, so it might still be. But yeah, I guess I'll find out if we find out how old the Vagabond actually is, which I would assume we do at some point. Exactly, and they are so basically they treat this as a riddle, the whole like ID signal thing, and they are trying to figure out what exactly they are supposed to respond. So they assume that like it's some form of like a password to which they need to reply something, and there are so basically what they find out is there are tones in the message which are used in pairs. So there's various tones that are used in pairs, and the tone itself, like the way the tone works, it seems to be a part of a language, and they search for something in that way which works in pairs as well to like determine which race this is attributed to, because it's something that is good to hide, yet it's still easily replicable if somebody, let's say, would lose. I mean, if it's like a very specific thing that not a lot of people would know, then it could be easy to just lose it and nobody would have access to it anymore. But it's easily enough replicable. It's replicable easily enough in that they could still reconstruct it, and that's why they want to try to determine what it is. And Lobot brings up that genetical codes are something that are easy to hide, obviously, but still also easily replicable. And there are tones in the messages which are, the pairs that are used. There's 18 different of them, and 3PO basically looks through a database more or less, and the only species which use 18 pairs of various genetic codes and who also have a language which is based on the tone of your voice are a species called the Keller. And they managed to replicate that the word that the Vagabond sent out means gold mine, which they now need to figure out what to reply to. But I thought that riddle was a really smart little thing, and it was a pretty cool way of trying to hide the password. And of course, since they've determined that it's the Keller, they are trying to find out what happened to them. And apparently they have been eradicated by an asteroid, but that doesn't seem to make a lot of sense to them because the ship that they have is really technologically advanced, and so it doesn't seem to make sense that they were wiped out by something as primitive as an asteroid. And yeah, exactly. The spoken version actually would have to sing it to express it properly. And 3PO does this as a response to the next appearance of the Vagabond, and it works. The Vagabond responds positively. They actually, when the New Republic ships want to attack the Vagabond, they actually get protected by it. I guess it has some advanced shield which it can use. Yeah, I've made that point in Darksaber where I didn't like that Darla was using this, like extending shields to protect another ship. But with this, like a weird piece of technology that doesn't seem to be connected to anything going on at the moment, I can buy it a whole lot more. And that's why I don't have an issue with it here. They get pulled in by a tractor beam, and then the ship goes away again. So there you go. Exactly, chapter 10. That's also just a short one. We just get a few nice scenes. Abad is introduced to Drayson, who I both really like them. They will basically act he will basically act as a spy for him, get information. So Abad for Drayson, and also directly send info back to him. And also he will send his, so Abad has an old friend who's called Kyles. He still owes him a favor. And he is like an astronomical researcher, I think, something like that. And he will send out research ships to collect some data about Kornacht, because of course they want to have somebody who is far away from New Republic people, that they couldn't trace it back to them. So it would just be like a random person. Not that it's a military ship, because of course that would be open insubordination, and Abad doesn't want to do that. So yeah. Oh yeah, we get this. So the sole fact that Han now regularly has like normal meals with his children means that he got fat. So apparently, yeah, it was about Han, that Han gained meat on his waist. That's what it said.
Oh, okay.
I know it said it for Han, but it would be funny if they pointed it out about Jason as well. Like, yeah, he's doing no sports. He's just being grumpy and wanting to use his mind, so he's just getting fat. That sounds funny, at least. Yeah, he. Oh yeah, and there's someone like, yeah. Apparently, it's really embarrassing. Like, it gets pointed out to Han by Abad. I think that it's pretty embarrassing to let yourself be ordered away by your wife, while not even really wanting to do anything that's connected to that in the first place. And Han just countered it by saying, like, tell that to someone who's interested. I mean, that was just a fun interaction, but yeah. There's nothing a lot more to say about them for now. 11, try to get a bit quicker. Yeah, we've been going on for quite some while here. We get a bit more backstory about the Keller. So that there used to be, like, back in, I guess it was back in the pre-Clone Wars era, where there was something called the Third General Inspection, and that was an attempt to try and map out like all the planets and all the populations in the spiral arms of the galaxy specifically. And yeah, and when 8 years later, like a contact ship was supposed to visit the Keller, yeah, so basically they went there. They just determined how important was it to investigate anything, and then they went back. And then the contact ship was supposed to go there 8 years later, and when it arrived there, the entire population was destroyed, and a third of the planet was covered in ice. And and since visiting like living planets with living populations was a priority, and they had no archaeological equipment which was specifically useful for ice, the further examination of the planet just was postponed, and ultimately it was postponed indefinitely because the inspection was stopped with the breakout of the Clone Wars, which makes sense to me. And of course, afterwards, nobody seemed to care about it anymore, I suppose. Yeah, and that's when I just had that idea, because I liked this whole researching and trying to find out what happened to this planet and this species. Like, yeah, like just a side novel series for the EU, where Lando is just
Yep.
going around, like almost Indiana Jones style. He's just going to places trying to find out, like, what's happened here, what's happened to this civilization, to this planet, to this ship thing, whatever. I like that. I thought this would have been a pretty cool idea to have him do something, throughout the times where he isn't really doing anything in other places. Yep. And so Lando is actually in the ship now, so in the Vagabond, and he doesn't really know what to do. And there is apparently so Lobot brings up something that's pretty interesting. There's a species called the Donati. And they can watch a painting or just like a bunch of random colors, and it touches their conscious in a specific way, so it gets them into a trance. And perhaps there is something that like works similarly for the Keller, because they are looking around, they don't really seem to find anything but a weird painting of some sorts, and it's like, well, there might be something that only responds to the Keller in a way that we can't comprehend. And what they will do now is that they can access, there's like research institutes and that they can access information from, and R2 basically can project a picture of how a Keller with his way of sensing things around him would see what's in front of them right now, which was an interesting concept. Like, okay, R2 can basically see through the eyes of another species and project what they see, what nobody else can. There is exactly, so they with that they find a hand mechanism, which is supposed to open the door, I suppose. And with the conscience projection, they managed to find that it's not of the Keller, but it's like a because they don't have any information on the Keller actually, but they have predecessors of them, like the pre-evolutionary states of the Keller that they have access to, and so they find this mechanism there. And yeah, but now the ship is going back to hyperspace, and the problem is they are there without the Lady Luck. They have no control over the ship, obviously, and the ship is moving as they have determined, like via R2, because I think they have like a little tracking device that they put on the outside of the ship. They are determining that they are going to the deep core now, which of course they don't want to reach. So yeah, it's just a pretty cool chapter. There's not a lot of action happening here, but I like those chapters a lot.
Yeah, a lot of setup.
Yeah, it's just set up, but it's totally acceptable. It's not boring. There's a lot of stuff that is very intriguing here, like what happened to the Keller. I'm actually interested in knowing more about them and what happened to their planet and what exactly the Vagabond even is and how it's connected to them. All of that is just set up. There's not a lot of stuff revealed here, but it's pretty good, pretty cool, and nicely done. Chapter 12. We are back with Luke and Arcana. Luke apparently gave Arcana's ship the name Mudsloth because it's so slow, I guess, and it's not good. That was quite the start to the chapter. I was really impressed.
Oh yeah, isn't it like? Doesn't she say, yeah, it'll take us a week to get there or something like that?
Yeah, I mean, because it's a passenger ship. It's not a military class ship, so it doesn't have a lot of the. It's just generally slower and clunkier, and it doesn't have something. I guess specific engines or something that military craft has. So they always need to actually fly out of a system, like very slowly. That's why they always need so long to leave a system, because they have to fly a long time before they are able to go to hyperspace. It's a really weird thing, yeah. I mean, I guess it makes sense. A passenger ship needs to be inferior to a military ship, but yeah, that was calling it the Mudsloth was funny, I guess. Oh yeah, Luke apparently is now awkward because he has isolated himself so much that he has forgotten how to speak to people. Yeah, he didn't need to be in this place, but he is, so let's just accept it. Oh yeah, something that's weird because it's also in Shield of Lies is that Luke is watching Arcana while she's doing gymnastics.
Yes, Arcana is on the list of the potential romantic partners that Bantam tried to force on Luke, or
Yes,
Bantam and Marvel.
one of the few. I mean, Jesus, we had so many. We had Gariel, Mara, I guess. We have Mary, Lumaya. We have Callista, and now Arcana as well. Yeah, there's a lot of them, and people make fun of it, and I get it. Like it's humorous if you look at it from an outside perspective, but I just usually get annoyed
I
by it.
think this is the worst one because I don't even think they like each other.
Yeah, it doesn't seem that way. At least you could almost say at least he and Callista like each other.
Yeah.
I mean, I would still say Callista is worse because I mean she actually seems to be a villain to me. So, and Arcana is just really annoying. But yeah, they don't seem in any way connected, and they are like cuddling at the end of the second book. So not a lot of stuff happening here. And as we all know, a certain other author, a few years later, determined that while they were cuddling, they actually did have canonically done the deed. So yeah, there you go. Yeah, if you ever get annoyed by Arcana during these, just remember that she and Luke canonically now actually did it. So yep. Yeah, and also while she was doing gymnastics, she of course had skin tight clothing on, but she pretended like she didn't see him, but she clearly knew that he was there, which makes it just a bit creepier. Like this guy, I don't really know him, but he's staring at my ass while I'm doing yoga. Yeah, I'm just gonna let him. Like, I guess maybe that's to signalize her romantic interest that she
Yeah,
she lets him
the
over
whole
her.
thing with the hyperdrive was just BS to force him to sit in a ship alone with her for a week.
Basically, yeah, it's a way to create a scene where they can talk to each other because otherwise they probably wouldn't. Yeah, it's not good. um, oh yeah, apparently the Empire was both jealous and afraid of the power of the Phalanesi, and I just thought it was amusing how many backwater Force user cults with no actual power to speak of are convinced that the
Yes,
Empire is really afraid of them.
yes, and not just that they weren't worth the trouble of exterminating.
Exactly. Like, that was something I was really pissed about in Courtship, of course, because, yeah, the Emperor being afraid of Gethsarion. Um, Tenennial Joe apparently is better at telekinesis than Darth Vader, according to Luke. Yeah, and they were like really afraid, and yeah, sure. You're just not you can't even go. You don't have anything there. You don't even have the tools to at some point go away. So you're just like, yeah, whatever. You're not even worth the hassle, I guess. I mean, it still would have been easier to just incinerate the entire planet, but yeah, and it's the same thing with the Phalanesi. It's like, I'm pretty sure most people don't really know you're actually a thing. So I don't know. Yeah. Um Yeah, and the Emperor controlling the galactic superpower, like not a, but the galactic superpower. That the notion that he's afraid of any of them. Yeah, I'm sorry. That's ridiculous. Yeah.
If he was, they wouldn't be alive anymore.
Yeah, like it would be if it was that easy, then they probably would have tried it. Like if the Empire is afraid of you, that means they have a reason to. So you would have a good presumably you would have a good chance if you attack them because they are afraid of you, right? But no one ever did. Yeah, probably because you're not that threatening. It's really weird that especially these hillbilly force cults always believe that. It's interesting to say the least. Yeah. Um. Oh yeah. There's a scene where they land on the planet called Lukazak, and so apparently things changed around there, and according to Arcana, it's a dead giveaway that you're a bureaucrat and untrusting of people if you ask them for an ID when they land on your planet. Okay. That just sounds like standard procedure to me. I don't know. And both Luke and Arcana believe that is the case. So yeah. But anyways, they are going to Lukazak, which apparently is the last known staying place of the Phalanesi. We have a little fight scene with presumably Imperial spies. Luke, before one of the enemies is able to even attack, he destroys his blaster with the Force, and then pulls it out of his hand. And that's usually something I always wondered, like if a Force user is fighting somebody with a blaster, like why is he even bothering to deflect any of the shots? Why isn't he just pulling the blaster out of his hand? Why isn't that always what they do? And yeah, usually it's some apparent reason why they can't do that, or like they're too distracted. But here Luke does it immediately, so it's that easy, I guess. He obviously kills them because they pose an active threat to both of them. And Arcana seems to be really pissed off about this. And this is a through line with her character that's going to continue in the next book, and I assume also in Tyrant's Test, is that she really, really doesn't like killing. And Arcana said, like, they could have never hurt her, and that he shouldn't have done that. I mean, she was, I think, unarmed, and she wasn't doing anything but yelling. So, yeah, they would have killed you. I'm sorry.
She doesn't like killing, but she seeks out a person who has a kill count in the millions.
That she knows about. So
That
she even knows about this. So
yeah.
that's a weird thing. And she has a weird little rule that will come up in Shield of Lies about killing, and especially about weapons as well. But yeah, Arcana. Oh yeah. We have a little. I've just quoted this because it was confusing. So Luke says to her, like, Arcana, whatever you think, we can be hurt, which sounds stupid because it feels stupid that it needs to be pointed out. But yeah, that's true. Luke, you actually can be hurt. And Arcana replies with, "Does a child who throws a stone hurt the river?" I guess it's supposed to mean she can't be hurt by anything, but I mean, she is a human being. She can just be shot. And like that was such a weird analogy to reply with. I don't know. Yeah. Of course, like, before one of the spies died, he alerted supposedly the Empire. Arcana, though, thinks that they have enough time for learning about her and also his mother. Like, they're just walking around there while the Empire could show up at any minute, but nobody really cares. Luke is also like, hey, we really should get going. The Empire is gonna come. And she's just like, no, we can't be caught. And yeah, I wrote down the source for her was literally, trust me, bro, because it is that. It's like, yeah, just trust me. It won't happen, but no, wait, they are actually coming. No, we won't get caught. Okay, and Luke caves in and stays. Yeah. Oh yeah, something I wondered as well, like, a fact that apparently Luke never seemed to take into consideration when hearing about Nashira is that if this is a cult about people who specifically seek out to hide themselves, how exactly would Anakin even have a relationship with one of them? Because she never says that Anakin was a Felanesi, and obviously he doesn't say it because it's not true. But if this is a culture which shies away from any sort of killing and people who kill, which Anakin, whether on the good or the bad side, always was, how exactly would he get a woman pregnant from that culture? Luke never wastes a thought on that, so we just have to accept that. Oh yeah, and I also wonder, like, if his mother, because the Felanesi, I mean, it's not just some culture; it's also a Force-sensitive culture. And I wonder, just like, don't you think either Yoda or Obi-Wan, while they were alive, would have ever mentioned to you that your mother also was from a Force-sensitive culture? Because I would assume they would have known if that was the case. I mean, I don't know. Perhaps they weren't, yeah. But Luke never considers any of it. I guess he's just that excited about seeing his mother. Okay, yeah. So, last 3 chapters. We're almost done. Chapter 13 now. Yeah. So, more evolution in the at the Neil Spar front. So, Neil Spar apparently hasn't talked to Leia in 3 days. He always just stays on his ship, which is, of course, fully protected from anything. Like, it can't be observed in any way. You can't really guess what's going on there. And they meet up with entrance candidates and rebellious senators from the New Republic, which, of course, is a bit concerning. And Leia is dumbfounded, but she doesn't want to hear about it. And Riken correctly points out to her, like, I think she asks people, like, what's going on. People tell her. she doesn't want to hear it. And then Riken correctly points out, like, why ask if you don't want to know the answer? Which is correct. Like, that's a weird thing. We have to have her be so dumbfounded about anything Neil Spar connected that she still needs to be the one to ask to move the plot forward, but also can't acknowledge it actually. Yeah, nice. The Yevithans now start their ships, like their ship engines, without any clearance. They injure and they also kill. They explicitly kill people with that. Inside, of course, the planetary shield is still active because they don't have any clearance. Yeah, Akbar says he will notify the fleet in case they just move further and do anything rash, to open fire. Leia asks, why should that be necessary? It's just a diplomatic ship. We have no proof it's armed or seeks to harm people. Yeah. What's the term in English? Like, it's not negligence, but like really
Incompetence.
Yeah, I mean also incompetence, but I mean from the side of the Yevithans, if you just assume that they don't actually have the intent to do it, but it's like, yeah, maybe they don't want to harm people, but they did, and they clearly could have known. And Leia's just like, no, they don't want to harm people. So yeah, Leia, you're pretty incompetent, unreasonably so, more than you usually are. But yeah, but at least she agrees that the fleet should be in position, which is good. Yeah, of course, nobody I would have assumed like maybe they would have tried to disable them in any way, like shoot them down, maybe open ion cannon fire on them, but nothing happens. They're just like hanging in midair in front of the shield. Senators are talking to each other, and they are like bored at a meeting. And somebody counters like, if Senator X can make us all come to watch the birthing process in his nest, then we can also watch this, and this. And yeah, apparently senators watch each other's nests being born, so that's cool. Something that was amusing to me coming out of Barbara Hambly era is that the sergeant at arms of the Republic Senate is a Gamorrean, which is hilarious to me somehow. I don't know. The mental image is just so stupid. Like, yeah, you have that or Mas Ameda. So, Mas Ameda sounds a bit more impressive. Yeah. And Neil Spar expresses something which I can express as well, which is that he is flabbergasted that he's allowed to insult the New Republic leader in front of its officials and to not have to be afraid of anything. I can sort of agree with that. It's like, yeah, it's really easy for you to play all of them, and nobody really can defend themselves. Apparently, yeah, we get a lot of like jaded feelings about the New Republic in general and the Senate. Like, the people there, the senators, are stupid. They are unable to function together. All of them are after their own gain, and none of them are more after their own gain than the traitor Paramus. So Paramus is one of them who has been seeing Neil Spar a lot recently. So yeah, I mean, they are written like that here. So that's just sad. So Neil Spar now gives a talk to the Senate, and of course he lies about everything that happened. He says that they found a spy in their system. The spy, of course, being the astronomers that were sent there by Abad. His proof. So of course he was going to prove that they actually did find this, and he just held up a piece of wreckage with a New Republic sign on it, which I don't know, maybe it's just me, but to me that doesn't prove anything. I can also just take a piece of scrap metal, paint the New Republic logo on it, and be like, yeah, that's from a ship that we found flying around here. Like, okay, but people buy it. He says like they apparently were trying to get the authorization to leave for 3 days, until they tried it themselves. I mean, first of all, that should be really easy to check whether they actually did. And the starting thing, like, if you, let's say Neil Spa wasn't lying, if he's trapped inside a planetary shield that isn't coming down because people are not giving you the clearance, how would a person like that expect to escape through the planetary shield? That's also something that none of the senators seem to ever ask themselves, because they still buy it. Oh yeah, and apparently their ship was started to be like slowly surrounded by Republic agents. Again, we have no proof for that, and usually you would, I mean, I would assume a ship port would be, like, would have cameras there. It could be like, oh wait, there's agents there. Yeah, let's just look through the footage. Oh wait, there's nobody there. So who are you talking about? Yeah, but that would prove the opposite, and we can't have that now. Yeah. Oh yeah, and apparently if the ship is unarmed, like, you can't even try to shoot yourself out of the planetary shield, which wouldn't work anyway, but you can't even attempt it. So yeah. But the Senate buys it. Some people immediately leave the New Republic over this. Abad, because he was caught, of course, being he admitted being the one responsible for the spy, quote unquote, being found, is fired by Leia. Well, okay. Han now has the command over the Fifth Fleet, but he will use, like, there are also ships that can be used as, like, for espionage, and Han is also like, yeah, there's something going on there that isn't quite right. So Han himself actually leaves behind ships on his own, which is good. It's good, and it's a sensible thing to do. Han isn't stupid. I like that. But yeah, this was quite the uninspiring chapter. 14. Yeah, apparently Yevithans became essentially like, I guess you could call it space Nazis, by learning just that there are other species. There's, they just thought everyone is disgusting. They're all vermin. They are uncultured. We are better than all of them, and that's how they developed into being how they are. Okay, there is a character that's called that that has a very interesting name, because it seems as though it's pretty difficult to pronounce that correctly, which is Negus Nigicus. So Negus Nigekus. Yeah, that that's a dangerous name to pronounce, so do it at your own peril. Yeah, apparently. So yeah, we get talks about, like, the surrounding planets, I think, around Enzoth, and I think it's the first time we actually really get a mention that the Empire leaving a place actually worsened the living conditions in that place, because since, like, there were trade routes going around everywhere, and people were reliant on the Empire keeping it safe, and with their departure, it just got unsafe, and it's infested with pirates, basically. And I like that there's an acknowledgement of this, like, the Empire leaving has a negative influence on what's happening on the planet, or even in the surrounding region in general.
Mm-hmm.
Now the Yevithans launched their plan, which is to extinguish all non-Yevithans around them, so in their system, just for more, essentially for more Lebensraum, because they need space for Yevithans, I guess. There's a name of a garden city that just was funny, which was called Yittepetan, which is going to come up in the next book as well. So J''T''P''TAN. which is an interesting name. And we get introduced to a new character who's also going to be pretty interesting. He's called Plat Malar. He is a pilot from one of the planets which were wiped out by the Vithans. He manages to escape with one of the TIE interceptors they have there. He records everything that happens, like with camera footage actually surrounding the planet. He's leaving behind a voice message, basically, in case anyone would ever find him. And he tries to essentially go into a correct direction. And at some point, of course, he goes unconscious because his ship has been damaged and he's no breathable air left. And then the New Republic, so the ships I think that were left behind by Han, they find him. They're gonna take him to Coruscant and of course question about everything and get all the information. Yeah, and I think he escaped in a cool way. Plat Malar, but I just wondered why the Yevethans didn't already wipe out everyone surrounding them a long time ago. Because I don't think this is something they have determined just now that they would do that. And they were always technologically more advanced, so they could have at any point just done that. But them doing it now will give the New Republic a justification to enter war with them, which I guess means it's done for plot purposes that they haven't wiped them out already. But yeah, it's just something we have to accept.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's just a thing. No big deal, I guess. And finally, chapter 15. So Akbar visits Han and Leia, and he hopes that they weren't in the midst of coupling when he entered the house, which I didn't want to know about, but okay, that's a thought that Akbar has. Yeah, the survivor from Polnai, so that's where Plat Malar is from, Polnai. Apparently, Leia understands it as a setup to make her look stupid, which I don't understand even how that would work. Leia has nothing to offer for help since people always disagree anyway. She doesn't want to do anything anymore, and she just wants to sleep for 3 days. Okay, that's what Leia is gonna do now until the next book, basically. Yeah. Then another person comes to her, a person called Yobath of Fear. Like the planet is called Fear. She has news about Kornacht, and now Leia believes that Akbar wants to take her position as chief of state and just sends all of these people to her to mock her for her stupidity. Yeah, Leia is getting a bit paranoid in this. Unfortunately, not about the stuff that's important, but yep. Oh yeah, and that's something that I pointed out. So Greyholm, he's a big fan of Courtship of Princess Leia, and a justification I always hear about why Han and Leia are the way that they are in these books is sleep deprivation. Because apparently, like, you just go insane if you don't sleep for a long time.
Mm-hmm.
But Leia in this is also sleep deprived, and people would still argue that Leia here sucks. So that was funny because she was explicitly sleep deprived at this point. But yeah, I don't think anyone would argue that this Leia was really good. Yeah, but that's just a thing. Oh yeah, apparently people just can sit around like and wait for Leia in front of their homes, and there's like just a droid guarding them. Just weird to me. Yeah, Leia has basically stopped the entire state apparatus just because she's like crying at home and won't come out. Yeah, and oh yeah, people now in retrospect determined that Neil Spar just wanting to protect his own people and to be left alone without anyone else was a dead giveaway that Spar would commit genocide, which I don't understand, but okay. Guess it's just a few more steps in between there, but yeah, I don't know. Abad can't be reinstated as a general because he disobeyed admittedly stupid orders, but he still disobeyed. Han admits that he's the one who sent out the ships himself. Oh yeah, Leia believes that nobody listens to her because she's a woman.
Mm-hmm.
That's the thing that Leia thinks now. You don't need to make women like this. They don't need to complain about being women to be strong. And Leia's a perfect example of not being like that, but okay. Yeah, nobody listens to her because she's a woman. That's it. Leia wonders how she, as a Jedi, didn't notice that she was being lied to by Spar. And Han says that she apparently doesn't really want to use her powers. Which is weird, because it's clearly useful, especially if trying to contact new people. But I guess she didn't consider that. Yeah, it's unclear how much Leia actually wants to be a Jedi or not. Yeah, that's this. Apparently, she generally thinks that the people she's dealing with are good and reasonable people. I don't get why she would. I mean, she has dealt with Vader, with Tarkin, and the Emperor for a long time. She should know that this isn't the case, but oh well. Okay, at least Leia seems to see reason and admit that everything's been her fault. Abad is back now. Yeah, his entrance on the ship with his men, like, it begins with the loyalty of little men can be bought, since greed knows no honor. I didn't quite understand how that connected to Abad in any way, but I guess that's how his entrance to the ship begins. Spa, he hacks the radio of the New Republic. He basically is like, okay, yeah, we were betrayed. They are the new empire now, not the New Republic, and there's gonna be war. And that's it. We're finished finally. Yeah. Yeah, I'm wondering, like, out of 10, maybe like towards the end, out of 10, what would you give this book?
I don't know.
Yeah.
I think maybe a 6 or 7. It's been a while since I've read it. But I do remember enjoying it.
Yeah, I mean, I think since Lando occupied a big part of the book, I think probably for the most part I also did. I think Han worked pretty well. Leia works pretty well in the beginning. Luke is just barely in this book anyway, so I don't particularly have to care about him a whole lot, like, aside from the beginning. And Lando is basically excellent. Yeah, I was like somewhere around 4 to 5. I have to think. I gave Darksaber a 5. I think with the stuff that works well in this book, there's a lot more consistency than in Darksaber. But probably the stuff that doesn't work is more egregious overall. I think I might be a bit more positive, since I did like a whole lot about this book, but it's tough to determine. Maybe a 5.5, could perhaps even a 6 when I'm really generous. I'm somewhere around there, but I think like 5.5 might be the fairest thing, since I do have to acknowledge, like, the Lando part. It isn't the main story, although it's a big part of the book, unfortunately. And yeah, Spar is an interesting character. Like I said, the way that he is a political villain more than he is a military villain, most of the times at least, is very interesting, and it's refreshing. But I just don't like the response that he's given, and I would have liked if the people around him would have been more competent. So I think 5.5 is where I'm at now. I might change, because it's like, yeah, that could be like so and so. But yeah, so that is Before the Storm. Do you have anything to say before we leave?
No, not really. Not that we haven't already said, I think.
I think so, yeah. We've gone really in depth here. Yeah, so thanks a lot for joining, definitely. And yeah, next week I probably won't do a stream, because I have to do university stuff on Sunday, which is gonna be annoying, but I have to do it. So the week afterwards will be Shield of Lies. And yeah, anyway, so that's all I have to say. If you've watched that far, thanks a lot, and see you next time. Bye bye.